All right, I will call the meeting to order.
Renee's
Yes, we do.
here.
Thank you all for coming out tonight.
You're welcome.
So for the board, excuse me, we have Dick, Shari, Nancy, Lynn, Janet, Jenny, Alan, Renee, Andy.
Renee, come on down. You're
And-
next.
The board is right. And senior staff, we have Susan and Sherry.
I was gonna suggest that we have, like the football players come out on the.
No.
banner.
Yeah.
I will remind everyone that the meeting is being streamed and recorded.
Oh, hello, everybody.
So please remember to talk into your mics.
Yes.
And I will ask if any board members are attending remotely via phone.
Nope.
Okay. I have no closed meetings or anything to announce. All right, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Jenny moved.
Second.
Oh, go ahead.
Renee seconded. Any discussion? All those in, Alan.
I know you responded, but wasn't there a request on your part to change the agenda today?
I thought I
You did
answer?
respond, but I don't know if that satisfied the,
Yeah, I
request.
got the response
Oh,
that
I
it
just seen
wouldn't
this
work.
now.
I'm sorry. I mean, I can explain it later, but
All right.
that we're
No.
going to discuss part of what I
Yes.
want to do anyway, and then the
Yeah.
other part is up to the committees to make
I
the
got
changes.
I got the same response. I just want to make sure it was satisfactory to you.
Yeah. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. All right. Conflicts of interest, none have been disclosed. Move on to residents speak out.
There is none.
There are none.
Let's go outside and.
Must be the weather.
Okay. Oh, I know where they are.
Great.
They're at the zoning board hearing
That's exactly.
on Hickory Ridge Village Center tonight.
Oh, that's a biggie.
This is the big one. This is Kimco at the zoning board.
I thought it was last night.
And that I suspect is why
I think it was.
Jessica, it will be later, coming later.
Is it a continuance? Because I thought it was the 24th.
It just,
Important right now?
today, I think it was.
Do
I
we
think it
need
was
to discuss
continued.
this right now?
Oh.
I'm not
we go
sure.
on?
All right, reports and presentations. Move on, financial reports, audited financial statements in the fourth quarter financial report. So let me ask the audit committee members if they have anything they'd like to say. The audit committee did look at the fourth quarter and
Yeah, we are presenting it for approval.
so
We're presenting it for approval.
why don't you tell the board that you did actually meet with the external auditors
Oh, yes.
and you had a good conversation?
We had a
and-
very good conversation. We,
Don't put
our
words
staff
in his
got some
mouth.
very high marks for cooperation and for following the system and doing the right thing. So we were very pleased by that.
Okay, so any questions from the board? Thank you.
I had one question.
Sure.
So I was just curious, is this on anything budget really? Or is this financial?
Well, this is the
statement? Okay,
financial-
that's, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't
Yeah,
speaking
The
out of
financials.
I was just curious in terms of the direct and allocated membership income was down 2.3%. And so I was wondering if the future budget was projected off of that or if we hadn't had that number and we had to project it off the old number.
I believe the total membership income was below budget by 2.3%. Better year over year by 2.4. But I believe we did make an adjustment in FY20 that reflected that, but I don't know to what extent. We did make an adjustment in that last process.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
But also, I think part of the problem was we had some golf course issues and we had the
Athletic.
remodeling of the athletic club, and I think the feeling was that
Yeah.
was a one-time hit.
But we did also I know we made an adjustment to reflect the mix of memberships that sold FY '20 budget.
But if I'm understanding what you're saying, there's actually about a 4 percentage point gap, because we anticipated 2% above
No,
historic average, or?
no, we budgeted, let's see, I
At
have
the
the numbers.
historic average?
Yeah. Yeah, I have it, just a sec. So we budgeted, sorry. Let me pull out all my papers. So we budgeted a combined 19,370,000. We actually recognized 18,928,000. So the budget, so we did not achieve budget. We were short $442,000 or 2.3%. But in FY18, the actual was 18,484,000. We achieved 18,928,000. So we
So we
were
did budget more than the previous year.
than the previous year, right?
But fell short of that.
Correct. No, we achieved our previous
Achieved
year
the previous-
goal,
No, I mean,
but
but we
not the
didn't achieve the
budget.
budget. So
Right.
from your point of view, do the two items that Dick just mentioned, first of all, do they account for the difference? And B, if they do, why weren't they? But we knew that at least the athletic club was going to be remodeled. Why didn't we account for that in our budget?
So we also had expense savings that offset that difference for the athletic club, so we didn't reduce the budget by those amounts. So the membership, the actual to budget variance was more a reflection of the mix of memberships being sold, more one-fits being sold than we anticipated. So that's a lower dollar value for that. So that's why. We did make an adjustment to the FY20 budget to reflect the experience with the mix. Whether that's adequate enough, we'll see.
Thank you.
Okay, I wasn't done. I had another question. So I was curious, in terms of costs of things that the board requests that require outside input, do we track those under board expenses, or are they captured anywhere that,
Generally in board expenses.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Ginny?
I don't know if I should be asking this now or asking it later, but some of us were talking about that item under board expenses. And could we maybe put more clarification under that so that they don't think we're each getting $250,000?
You didn't get yours?
Sherry and I were talking about that.
Those
Yeah, we know
dinners
it's
are-
only,
Mine.
we know it's only 200, so I'm
Those
kidding.
dinners
I'm
are
kidding.
really good.
But, some explanation there so we don't have to explain the, what is it, 1 million or 1.5 million or
The one
So
somewhere
the
around.
it's the allocated expenses
Yeah.
that you're talking
Yeah,
about? to the
that,
board,
it's the
Administration.
administration,
and other things come
share
under
of
there.
administration,
Right, so that's
consulting
explained
fees.
in the budget every year. There's an allocation section in the budget that explains all of them all the time. So, yeah, we could add a note in here that says but I think it's clear you're not being compensated. That would be up in the top line. This is an allocated administrative expense.
I'm being a little facetious, but people do come and say, what are you spending 1 point whatever it is in the budget?
Where they actually see it, I think that's problematic, is in the annual report, where it's just sort of there as equal column to everything else. And it's like, I'm not sure that's the best presentation.
Well, it is accurate.
It's accurate, but should that be folded in with some other things? I don't know.
Then it wouldn't be transparent.
There is that, but then that's why we need a little more explanation that we're not, does not include any salary.
Shari and Dick?
Yeah, the question that I had about the allocation under board, are the stakeholder dinners, the costs of the stakeholder dinners charged to the board?
I don't know. I'd have to look.
All right, I think that would be something that we would want to see in the sense that, and I'm responding to what Alan is saying now also, and Ginny, that there is no benefit that accrues to the board. The board is acting on behalf of CA to make connections in the community, and this is really, I don't know whether you want to call it marketing, PR, Community building, if we don't have a section that says community building, maybe we should. Because the way it looks now, with the allocation, if those are allocated, that's a lot of money that's pouring in that looks like it's going to the board. And that is simply not the case. So,
Yeah, so could we check, because
yeah.
that shouldn't be an allocated expense. It
They're
should be
not.
an actual
That's
expense
true.
against the board.
So for stakeholders dinners, in FY 2018 was a total of $11,732. And for FY 18, and this is a question that came up last year, so I'm looking at the response to that. So that is included in the board, on the board page in operating supplies and expenses, I believe. So that's $12,000. I think the attention's on that $880,000 allocation of administrative expenses. Is that correct?
so is all of that going into the document, that 2-page document that goes out to the community when they get their bill?
Yes,
And it says 1 million plus.
correct,
All of that is pouring into that piece of the pie.
correct.
Okay. Okay. So that's what my suggestion is, that perhaps that needs to be changed.
Oh, I don't think we should change it, and it wouldn't be appropriate to change it. Perhaps it needs more clarification, but that's where the costs belong.
Well, then the board can make a change in terms of whether or not we're going to do them.
Oh, the $11,000 of
Yeah.
The
dinner?
stakeholder dinners.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, right.
But I think
I'm not clear.
we're talking about two different things. The original conversation talked about the fact that 858,000 of that 1 million is actually allocated expenses, okay, to the board.
Right.
But what you're talking about is up in operating costs.
Yes, but what I just
Right.
asked about, Andy, is when that visual goes out to
Yes.
the community
Right.
on that 2-pager,
Yep.
is everything in that slice of the pie?
Yeah, what the community sees in the annual report is 1 million.
That's what I was
That's
hearing.
the
Right.
question.
Right.
And basically 900,000 of that is allocated, but the annual report doesn't do allocations.
That's the
Right.
problem.
Right, they just do,
That's a problem.
right.
Okay, thank you.
People think we're getting rich on this.
Absolutely, yeah. Dick?
Well, I want to echo that because there is a perception problem. And just at my last village board meeting, an assumption was made that my trip to China was being paid for by CA. And I had to disabuse them of that notion. And I have talked to a number of people who really think that we're living high on the hog. And we have to correct this somehow. And I'd like you to give us some thought as to how we can.
Well, we could provide you some talking points that would help you explain it.
Well, I don't get to talk to all 3,000 people who live in my village. I think it has to be either something in the annual report or, just the naked $1 million for the board creates a perception problem. And there must be a way to fix that somehow.
Well, I'll take that into consideration, but.
I
we'll
would
see what we
appreciate
can
it
do.
if you
Yeah.
take a look at that.
Any other questions? And in addition to the fourth quarter, they also, the auditors did the incentive savings plan too, and the auditor.
I could not find that document. I couldn't find that document.
I didn't either.
It was shared with the audit committee materials?
It's in the,
In the drive.
Yeah.
it's
On the
in
Google
audit
Drive.
committee.
Because it said something
yes.
about it being sent out by Janet, and I didn't find anything sent out by Janet, so it must have been an audit link.
Or maybe Jackie.
Jackie. It
Right.
was sent
Sorry
out by
about that.
Jackie.
Oh,
She sent the link to all the board members.
I didn't see
We
it.
apologize for that.
5 days ago?
Yeah, yeah. I have been hearing from some board members that there have been some IT problems. And when you do have IT problems, please let Janet Logren know so she can then contact the IT. We can get these solved. Because as you know, as Janet said, all the audit stuff now is done via Google Docs, via a link. And every board member, hopefully gets it. But if you can't open it, we need to know that. Because we're just assuming that it's out there and you've seen it. And you do definitely want to look at this past audit agenda, because in the closed meeting section, there were some very important auditor statements that, the board members should be aware of. Everything's fine. I mean, the auditors are happy. We got a good, clean bill, but it's just for the board's information, it should look at that information. And so if you can't get to it, please let us know. Anything else?
Not on this, but I do want to ask, there were 5 or 6 documents that I think Janet sent out links to us that were financial related. They were sent in a way that we couldn't download them. And we can only look at them online, and sometimes that's difficult to compare. Was there a reason that they weren't confident, they didn't look like confidential information about the organization? They were comparisons, they were competitors' data, and some various other things. It looked like all publicly available data, so I'm not clear why they were sent in that way.
So there were 2 things shared. There was one, and it may not be necessary to do it that way. I think that was the default. The other document shared that was related to Sherry's, I know was not protected that way.
But that's the different, that can't, yeah.
Right.
But I would appreciate it if we really pay attention to that, because it really makes it a hardship on us to really take a look at those things, and we're not always sitting at our desk with a big screen computer and all that, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Point well taken. The reason I was late is I made some paper copies of those in response to Nancy's email. I made just 5 quickly, and people want them, I have them.
Sorry, you had a question?
I think Renee was.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to take a second, because I wasn't the most willing participant of the audit committee. I will say that it has been a learning experience for a lot of reasons. I think that Dick is adequately represented. The comments of our auditors, they were very complimentary to our staff, their professionalism. I can't tell you how many times they complimented our staff. But as a member of the audit committee and a past CPA, I would like to just take a second to ask everybody to catch their breath and please look at the financial statements. We have $99,000 in cash as of April 30th. Okay, this is not a crisis, but it is an inflection point in CA's budgeting. All right, that is less than 1 day's cash on hand. It's about 60% of 1 day. That's about 5 hours. As a member of the board, I'm just asking you during the budgeting process to please keep that in the back of your mind, that I know Susan has said we need a rainy day fund. We need at least a rainy day fund. We need to really be aware of the decisions we're making to make sure we increase that number past 5 hours. It's just not an acceptable number, even with a line of credit. So that was my big comment.
What was the response? Susan, do you have a response?
Well, may I just for a second? I think Susan had, if I look at the budgeted numbers versus the actual numbers, she was remarkably close. Now, the numbers from one category to the next varied a little bit, and sometimes almost drastically. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure it was a Susan thing as much as it is as a board. We're going to have to take a little bit of a step back and really think about every expenditure that we budget for to make sure it's something that we need and not just something that we want. And, maybe, as you said, it's an assessment issue. I don't want to go there right now, but I'm just saying, as somebody who's keenly aware of what financial statements are telling me, this financial statement is telling me that if I set aside the line of credit, that there's not much liquidity here. And we need to really think about every dime we spend and to make sure we're making smart choices in how we allocate every penny of assessments and our membership fees.
I need a lesson then, because I'm not clear. I don't recall deciding on a line item in the budget to say this is how much cash we should have on hand.
No, we
So I'm
did.
not clear how that happens. And I'm totally clueless about what you're talking about, what the remedy is. I mean, I hear what the words, I understand what cash on hand is, I understand what 5 hours is. I'm just not clear on what we would do to change that.
Well, I think Susan brought up a good point. I don't remember if it's the last board meeting or the board meeting prior to that, where she said we need to start looking at setting aside a little bit more of our revenue for a rainy day fund. And I'm backing her up there, that's something that we need to do. We need to have more than a day's worth of cash. Now, is it 3 days? Is it 5 days? You don't want to have a lot of cash, but you do want to feel like if we had a natural disaster here, we had to hire contractors, we had a tornado come through and do more than $1 million worth of damage, that we were in a position to at least make a down payment with several contractors and get things moving quickly. And not necessarily having to draw down our line of credit the first hour. And I'm just saying that as we budget, I know we all have things that we want to accomplish, but just to be aware that overall, the overarching theme for me at this point in time is to make sure it's something that we need in the budget versus something that I want. You know, I would like to have a pool. I would like to have a clay tennis court. I would like to have whatever. So I'm just asking you to just be aware that at the end of the day, that we're budgeting very smartly. That's not a very good English, but do you understand what I'm saying? And I'll be glad to spend some time with you one day after the meeting and go through how we get to that cash number, but that's like a 3-credit class.
Okay, well, let's move on. And thanks for the offer to meet with people. Okay, dashboard quarterly update on membership information. Susan.
Okay. So this is a good quarter to look at the dashboard because a lot of some of the things that we have interim data or just measured at year end are now here because we're using the fourth quarter data or the whole fiscal year. So as we had done at the last quarter, there had been some questions about the first metric, which we had been presenting a net change in past due membership accounts, and that you see that that's continuing to improve. But we had also prepared a new metric that shows the membership AR balance and an aging of that and write-offs on the next page. And so we just, this is only the second time that you've seen this one. So I wanted to point that out to you and see if that is more of what you were looking for as far as
Which page
education.
are you looking at?
It's actually the third page of metrics. It's the one with one. It just has one on it.
It's 27 of the packet.
27 of the pack.
Oh,
No, on mine it's 32.
Oh,
Metric 1 at the top is
oh, metric, I'm
1A.
sorry.
This is metric
no,
1A.
1A or
If you
1?
keep going.
1A.
1A.
Yes.
Keep going. Yeah, there it is.
Me, that's 31.
Got it.
So clearly have different packets.
So you see continued improvement on the AR. We mentioned this at the audit committee, and we put a lot of focus over the last 2 years really on improving the balance sheet or the statement of financial position. So having accounts receivable and deferred revenue that more accurately reflect the contract and payment terms has been a part of that, and you see that in additional write-offs in previous periods. Yes.
This is all a year's worth, so like that was write-offs are not an accumulated amount of write-offs. This is
Right.
FY19 write-offs?
Yes.
Wait, Susan, this is not a cumulative. This is per quarter.
This is
Well, but the write-offs would be,
no. Yeah. I'm sorry. This is
Fourth
this is per quarter. I'm sorry.
Per quarter. It's
Yeah,
not a
1,000
cumulative.
apologies. Right.
1A
That's
is
right.
just for the quarter ending.
Yeah.
Right, 1A is just, so when we only have data on 3 quarters, the second, the third, and
Right.
the fourth
Because
quarter.
right.
This is a vast improvement.
Yep.
Thank you.
What other? I guess I would ask if anyone had any questions about any of the other financial metrics. Is there?
Okay, let me go back, because Susan asked the board a question. Is this the metric that the board wanted to see? Because we had a discussion, the last time we did it, is this kind of the way you wanted to see that information?
Yeah.
Is it
I think
helpful?
it looks
I
helpful.
think, Renee, you were really interested in these data elements. Is that more what you had in mind?
Right, yes.
Okay, so I think the answer is yes, Susan, and so we might as well keep the metric.
Okay.
Is there a reason why Q1 had so many more write-offs than, Q2 had so many more write-offs than 3 and 4?
Well, kind of a cleanup. Yeah.
Well,
So we were-
that's
we
sort of
were-
my question, is that's part of why I asked about this cumulative, so next year, should the lines be more level, or?
Yes, we would, yes, good question. Any questions? I wasn't intending to go through these unless you want me to, but if you have other questions, I'm happy to answer those. Yeah.
Janet?
So you mean just the dashboard? I'm looking at advertising effectiveness.
Okay, yeah,
Again, I'm not sure.
that's
Yeah.
how far-
That's all part of the
Okay, so
dashboard.
I was curious, I could have sworn in the budget, I'd seen that our, like advertising and marketing expense went down. And then when I look on here, cost of new memberships, it's a really big jump. And then the footnote indicates that we started working with a media agency. So is that a separate expense then from marketing and advertising, or?
No, I think the whole cost actually still went down, but it was a significant change in the last quarter. So we were, reflects a period of time with interim marketing, communications and marketing leadership, and then Laura coming on board and in that direction changing. So, those costs are still reported with all of the communications and marketing costs. It's just that there was a bigger spend in the fourth quarter on engaging an agency that we hadn't been using in the recent past, and additional work there. So it was all budgeted. They were still under budget for the year, and still below last year for expenses.
Sorry.
Yeah, I had a question, and I know that you sent out a response, but I don't know whether it was only me, but it came in to me at after 5 o'clock, and so I wasn't able to open anything or read the response. So I apologize for that if I'm asking for a repeat. But looking at 2015 to 2019, so market share is dropping, but I did not remember when the new membership structure went into effect. What year was that?
So that was for FY 2018.
It was?
Yes, it was May 1,
That's 2
2017.
years ago.
Fourth quarter FY 18?
No, fiscal year FY 18.
First quarter.
First quarter.
May 1, 2017 was when they changed. Now, it took a whole year because people were only impacted at their renewal dates.
Right.
So any new member would start with the new structure, and then as folks renewed, they would switch over.
And now everybody's over, right?
I think there's still some package plan,
Oh, there's still some,
right?
Really?
The phase-in, there's still some folks who had the
Okay.
limited package
Okay.
plan that are still.
Okay, and I guess the other question that I had about that is, was there an increase in rates, in membership rates, for all of those years? So that we continued to do the estimated 2 to 3% increase?
So from 2015 through 2019, there were both increases and decreases in membership rates, and some rates remained unchanged. So in that document, that the email that we sent, and I apologize for getting that done so late, but I didn't see it until I got here this morning because I didn't get it till 7 o'clock last night. So
Okay, so we're crossing things here.
right. So I attached copies of. Let's see, and I have here's 5, and we can make more if you need one.
Thank you so much for making those paper copies.
So what we did, I attached the rate sections of the board-approved budgets for each year, so you can actually look at them. So 15 through 2020.
Okay, great, thank you.
You had asked what the rates were. I'm providing those. Did we change the membership structure? It was in FY18. You had asked if there was a link between projected inflation and the percentage increase in each category.
Yeah.
No, there is no direct link between projected inflation and the percentage increase. The factor that more directly relates are the increasing costs of providing the facilities and programs. And I did a spreadsheet that shows.
So that has more to do with the capital investments that we've made over time?
That's a big part of it.
Okay.
The capital investments and
You can look at this, and she'll make more, I'm sure.
Okay.
personnel expenses, depreciation and interest, and the capital. So I think I have this attached to the wrong one, but anyway, so over that same period of time, the depreciation, interest, and the impact of fixed asset disposals, the average increase in that was over 10% per year. So, and for personnel costs, it was an average of over 5% a year. So these things are far outpacing the CPI, and it's not related. Let's see.
Okay.
And then you asked, how often does CA do market research comparisons? So we do that. So we're continuously evaluating the programs and services, as you can tell by how they change during the year. There's, new classes, new activities all the time. We do a market research comparison at least annually, and we'll do that more frequently if we want to change something or a new competitor comes into the market, or we just want to test what the market is for a particular facility or program or service. So one of Renee's questions was she wanted to see the competitive analysis, the most recent one, so we're distributing those today as well. And then you had asked a question about residential development downtown. I did not understand the question, that I wasn't sure, but we are continually monitoring competition in Columbia and in the neighboring areas and evaluating those activities, our activities in light of those all the time.
Because if I can just comment for a sec, I know in the past, used to do, some large-scale market research about what people wanted to see. So I guess this was survey research. Maybe that's a more accurate.
So we did
way
that in
of putting it.
2016, and that drove the membership restructure.
Okay, so
2016
that
and
survey research
2017.
was done. And I was wondering whether this is something that would be useful to link in the future to our 2-year budget cycle. So in other words, we are constantly examining these issues, but having a time to examine them as a board. I understand that the staff is constantly looking at that stuff, and I really appreciate the work that you do along those lines. Sports and Fitness does their stuff. I'm assuming that where our camps are concerned, we're also keeping an eye on things. But a time for the board to look at this, or to have something that gives that kind of general information, if that was actually timelined into the board's examination, that might be really, really helpful. So just to get some feedback from you about that.
Yeah, I would think that every 2 years would be a survey overkill, but it could be done on a some regular basis. But every 2 years is a lot of asking the same people the same questions, and it's very expensive. So I would think we should come to some other agreement on an interval that would be appropriate.
Well, survey research used to be done every 5 years, but things are changing way too fast now.
That's why we
And-
do the Clara Bridge too, to see what the members are interested in.
Yeah. But Clara Bridge is not used for membership services, things like the camps and things like other types of offerings. Is
Yeah, are
Clara
we
Bridge
sending
used
that
for that
out
also?
too? Yeah, it's sent to them.
So we have it going out, but we're just not receiving anything back. Okay.
Camps get low response, just.
All right, thank you.
So do you want to?
Any other questions then on
On the Clara Bridge survey?
the dashboard, and we'll go to the Clare Bridge?
So the Clare Bridge survey for the fourth quarter of the year, of the fiscal year, was actually a time for us to breathe a little bit because it was the first time in a year we hadn't had construction or renovation. And we were rewarded with our highest Net Promoter Score to date.
That's higher than the industry average, isn't it? Yeah. Congratulations.
So we started construction again, so remember, we've already seen incoming data. The members of Supreme are letting us know. But overall, the quarter was strong all across the board. The only place we really had any kind of a hiccup was tennis. And it was the comparison of the athletic club indoor courts to the Long Reach tennis. So athletic club was actually referred to as third world tennis.
Not spoiled at all.
Resurfacing the courts and adding some additional lights. It was about time for this to be due anyway. But all of that, Long Reach tennis is off the charts. We increased in virtually every metric. The sentiment increased. This is positive comments being made in the verbatims. The effort got a little bit harder, and it had to do with class times and the ability to schedule things. So that was something we have to continue to work on, and we're continuing to, as Susan mentioned, we're always changing and adding classes where necessary. The real highlights, like I said, the 41.2 was our highest Net Promoter Score ever. The largest increase were in the fitness centers and golf. Golf saw a 20-point increase, and golf, thankfully, with the bridges and the grass back, have been taking care of business this summer. It's been a very good summer on the golf courses. Both golf courses, we're very happy. We discussed tennis, the athletic club, and the effort. But overall, the team has done a really good job of taking care of the members and responding to the comments. The interesting thing here on age, and this is not atypical, this is normal. As age increases, Net Promoter Score increases. So our older members are our happiest members.
We're just happy to be alive.
There's so many of us. The older, the happier.
Oh, good analysis.
Look at the numbers.
The one thing I noticed, Dan, is this is one of the first times I've actually seen that, like at the very top, where we have all those words, it's virtually all green. I mean, because I've remembered past ones where there were big red things, and so it's like, wow, this is pretty good. I mean, you got, it's the words they're using are positive.
Substantial response rate as well. This was not a lower. Usually, the lower the response rate, the worse it is. The people who want to complain, the ones who complain. So having a substantial response rate, and the positive comments. When we had that moment to breathe, gives the staff a good feeling that the direction and the work they're doing is paying off.
So I have a methodology question, I guess, and I'm mindful of your comment, Susan, that surveying people every 2 years is a lot over survey. How does the Clare Bridge work in terms of that dynamic? Are we getting the same people answering the same questions over and over and over again, or?
It's a mix, and some of it's a mix because of the cyclical nature of our business. In the summer, it's predominantly pools and golf, and fitness clubs drop way off, and then in the winter it flips. So some of them are crossing over. We make sure we don't survey anybody more than 90 days. So we do it once a quarter, but we make sure that nobody overlaps. And that's why we keep the survey very simple. There's 5 satisfactions, rate 1 to 5, but then there's only 2 questions. And that's why we would like to ask more questions, but for precisely that reason, we do not. And We are very aware of the response rate, and we track that. And if it looks like it is starting going down, and it has moved back up to where, even when it was down, we're still above the, not, I don't want to say our industry, but survey response for a relationship survey, which is what we do. If we survey after every visit with a transactional survey, our response rates are significantly higher than the norm.
Thank you.
We talk about that on a regular basis.
Dick?
This, looking at the golf score here, reminds me of something that happened a couple years ago. We had a big conflict over the refreshment cart. Haven't heard a thing about it. I guess that's all running very smoothly at this point.
Where's tennis?
Pretty smoothly. Nothing's ever perfect, but
I mean, we're not.
the beverage cart, the mulligan, which is the snack shack, all working. Yes, I will never sit here and say anything's 100%, but we reached a nice
We're not getting complaints.
middle ground with the golfers and the restaurant.
Okay, good.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Nancy?
There's additional paperwork that didn't get all the way around. Is it possible to get copies for everybody?
Yeah,
I know it's late.
Well, no, I know some people look online, and I didn't want to waste the copies, but I can make more.
Thank you.
Here, we're passing around.
And we're looking at Lynn's right now. Is there, where's tennis on the membership revenue?
We have golf, we have,
It's the same thing. as
From the competitive analysis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we did one. Did we do one for tennis? I don't think we did.
What is it?
Oh, right, it's in the play membership.
in the play.
Right. So because there is no separate tennis membership, and this was focused on membership
Okay.
rates, because tennis, the old tennis membership was folded into play. That's right. And so some of those competitor outdoor pools also have outdoor tennis. So it's on that page for whatever information's available.
So if you look at the one on pool market rates, going down, you'll see Forest Hill Swim and Tennis Club,
Right.
Watermount Swim, the St. John Swim and Tennis Club.
Yeah, North St. John's. Right.
Yeah. Alan?
Yeah, the one that says volume by region on the Clara Bridge, Dan? Volume means the number of people who answered.
Yeah.
So it's really a frequency. And region are just the different chunks of our business.
Yeah, we bucket them into, so
And,
tennis would be all three.
okay, but I guess I'm looking at this, and this is June, I guess, basically.
No, this was fourth quarter
Fourth,
of the FY. This is back February.
February, March, April. Okay, thank you.
I was asked to make sure I always refer back to whatever quarter, because I was giving you current data, so I was asked to make sure I go back to whatever time period we're talking about.
So it aligns with the quarterly financial report and other information. So that's why aquatics is low, if that's what you're thinking.
That's what I said, I mean, given your statement that volume of business, and I was looking at that giant thing for fitness class. So wait a minute.
This is for fourth quarter.
There it is, date range. Let's see that.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. All right, consent agenda, it's all done. Go on to board votes. Basically the budget stuff. Susan, would you like to?
I don't really have anything further to say from the last conversation. We weren't asked to prepare any other materials other than what we provided. I apologize again for how long, just the delay, but it's a busy time of year, and the one set of questions we didn't get till after we were gone last night. But so you have now the same competitive analysis that we've used for rates. Perhaps the discussion at the audit committee meeting on our financials would influence or help inform your decision on the operating budget and capital budget parameters, as well as the annual charge. If I can If there are any questions, or if my colleagues can, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Do
So
our
we're-
audit committee members have any input from the meeting that influences this?
Dick, Renee?
Renee?
I think I brought up the one concern about the cash balance that we carry being a little bit low. The other concern that was mentioned, I think in open committee, was sports and fitness and the amount of money that we continue to contribute to it, and long-term plans for that category of expenses. And we explained to the committee that we were in the budgeting process, both with a 10-year projection for things and then capital expenses in the next 2 years. And the committee doesn't have a lot of understanding. I don't know if that's that's not the correct English. They don't have a deep understanding as to the process that we go through to budget. And what we did agree to do with Susan's help is to, after we've gotten a little bit further down the path, to spend some time with the audit committee to give them a better sense of how we budget and the amount of work that Susan and her crew puts into it. That is, and there, let me say that there's no one on the committee that in any way is worried about the financial stability of CA, overarching. But there are a couple areas that continue to draw attention: the low cash balance and the amount of losses in the sports and fitness being the two big items.
Alan?
Is the low cash balance, or is the cash balance that we have now different than what we historically keep?
Over the long term, not really. Over the last couple years, it has decreased because we have been spending on capital projects at a greater rate than we've been generating cash to cover. Now, that's something we know, and we have done that periodically in the past. We've used the line of credit, especially when short-term rates have been so incredibly favorable. And then in June 2014, for example, we termed out that short-term debt and got a long-term loan at very favorable terms. So it's not uncontrolled, and it's not lacking strategy. It just is a different business model than a hospital is used to, for example, from where the chair of the audit committee comes. And I would, sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish.
Well, it's not related to cash, so if you had a follow-up question.
Yeah,
I'll let you do
so if we as a board decided we want to have twice as much cash on it, how would that change any of the things that you've presented to us to vote on tonight? If at all.
I don't think it would change anything in the short run. Would we change any to double to have $200,000 in cash for a balance? No. I think what the 10-year forecast showed you was that if we reduce the capital spend from the $20 million of late to $15 million a year, we will over time begin to build a small cash reserve. So I think that's the way to look at it. That it's not a short-term project to build that back, to make that change, because it's a change for how we've been operating.
Okay,
Go ahead, let me go.
Nancy, Dick, and Renee.
So interest rates are still quite favorable.
Yes.
And because we have a low cash reserve, if something catastrophic happened, we would then have access to borrow from
Right, we still have
on
our
that
line.
line.
That's
The
in
line of
place.
credit, right.
Right, and so we, yes. we
So
still
it's
do.
not
And
really an
we drew
issue.
on it, we were, if you looked at the statement of financial position, you see, we were in the line for, what, 11 million? 11 million at the end of April, right. So we're using it. It peaked at a little over 19 million in July, and the annual charge revenues have come in and eliminated that, so.
Right.
Okay.
And I
Dick,
had
Renee,
another-
and
I had
Char.
another-
Oh, sorry.
No, unrelated to cash, but I wanted to get in the queue, please.
Okay, sure.
The key thing about the audit committee meeting is we've got two CPAs on the committee, and they ask a lot of good questions. Renee and I were pretty quiet through the whole thing, but they did ask a lot, and I think they were satisfied with all the answers they got. And to me, that's the main thing. And we were keeping an eye on things, but there were no big issues that came up. And not only from our CPAs on the committee, but also the outside auditors who were looking at things. There just weren't any red flags that really caused any concern. But it was a long meeting, but I think everybody walked away satisfied with what they heard.
Renee, and then Shari,
No, let her.
and Susan.
Go ahead, Shari. No, go ahead.
Okay.
Shari, and then Susan.
Thank you. Do we have a capped amount on that 15-year loan that we have? I mean, the line of credit or however that's.
So there are two different things. There's a long-term loan that was 15 years that we entered into in June of 2014. And so that was $30 million. And I forget where we are. I should know that.
I think you're down to 21.5.
22.1 at the end of April. $22.1 million at the end of April, still outstanding. That's on a scheduled payment, just like any other long-term loan. So we have a line of credit with a different bank, and that's like an equity line on your house, although it's unsecured, and that we draw on as we need it. So that is capped. We have to enter into an agreement with the bank every year for a total amount. We give them a schedule of what we think our projected cash needs are, and we can draw down on that. It can be amended during the year, and that's been the process. So that has a variable rate, short-term debt. It's tied to LIBOR right now. And the long-term debt, the original $30 million loan that's at 22 now, has a fixed rate. And so there are two different instruments.
Right.
I do know we don't have difficulty getting that line of credit renewed, and I would believe that we would enjoy, good competitive terms from any lender for another long-term loan.
Okay. So just let me ask, when the issue came up, this thing about having cash on hand, so for example, with open space, when we outsource, and we needed so much help after the tornado, and that was a big draw on open space. Did we handle that through cash or short term? I mean, how was that kind of big immediate expense due to, I don't know, if you want to call it environmental vulnerability, because that's what a lot of organizations are talking about now. So what kind of plan do we have for dealing with that, or do we have enough on hand to be able to manage that?
So it depends on the time of the year. So if that happens in August and we have cash on hand, we would use cash. If it happens in April and we don't, we would draw on the line. But we manage the organization's cash receipts and cash needs on a holistic, comprehensive CA-wide basis. We're not looking element by element through the year. Lynn does a 2-year rolling forecast of cash that is excellent and very accurate, and we're constantly looking at where we are from a cash needs basis, and we use the line when there is not adequate cash overall to support those things. If you look at the statement of cash flows in the audited financials, our operations net cash provided by operating activities was for 2019 was $14,200,000. Now we spent over $17 million in capital investments, so it was not adequate to pay for all of those and to pay down debt, and hence the use of the line of credit.
Okay, Susan and then Renee.
So I just wanted to say the audit committee members are excellent. They're super sound. They're savvy business people and smart CPAs. But I would just say that I think that we need to spend some time explaining the model, the business model, or the operational model behind sport and fitness. That we are, if we took the reins off of that department, we could get it to pay for itself, but I don't think that our community mission would be in agreement with that. We're have 1,400 income qualified memberships, for example, at 50% discount. We give substantial resident discounts. If we could do anything that would make sense, it would be to push up the cost of the play membership. Even the outside consultants who helped us with the membership restructure said, you're hamstrung by that low price on there. That's holding the other things. You bring up the bottom and lower the top, just like we did at Haven, and memberships increased. But those things I think we would like to go over with those audit committee members.
Renee?
I don't want anyone to panic about the cash balance. What I do want is a little bit of better budgeting. I think that some of my fellow board members would agree that the environment is changing and that natural disasters are coming, that in the last couple of years that we've had more than one tornado come through CA property, and that even though we don't have, I don't think as of this time we have a line item that says natural disaster, an X number of dollars, we're going to have to start look at budgeting some money like snow removal, but in this case, possible natural disasters.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll kind of echo Renee. If you looked at the fourth quarter financial report and kind of went back to the contracts and everything, we spent almost $1 million last year on tree removal. Just on tree removal. It's two contractors. But that was basically the Emerald Ash Borer and the weather. That $1 million did not include what happened this, May and June, which is putting pressure on our budget. And it kind of gets back to what you said, kind of the environmental thing. But, those were not budgeted expenses. We did not expect. And that's, when you start getting that kind of activity, it's just, you really got to start thinking, looking. Alan and Dick.
Well, so I guess I'm still with my question. What does that, and I'm not just asking Andy, what does that mean we ought to do? Does that mean a separate line item for contingency fund for natural disasters? Does it mean we think about the open space budget or wherever that money came from for like tree removal, who we think would be most affected by these things? Do we think about a percentage either across the board or targeted at different areas that we think we should bump the budget this much padding for this department and this much for that one? I'm just not clear this is the time we ought to be thinking about it. What's our approach to this?
Dick.
I'm wondering how this is affecting our insurance rates, the climate change issue. For example, we had to replace a couple of bridges 2 times in a row. Insurance companies get nervous.
So the first time, the bridge destruction and replacement was covered by insurance because it was a wind event. It was that derecho storm.
Mm-hmm.
The second time, it was a flood, and it was not covered. So they don't care if they're not paying, basically.
I imagine we're going to get more wind damage along with everything else.
That could be, and it would be a structure like the. I don't think the tree removals are not trees are not insured property, scheduled property, so there wouldn't be any loss there.
Okay, thank you.
But there, it's possible if those wind events, if a tornado damaged our buildings, then we would seek reimbursement from our carriers for those.
Renee?
So I guess since I'm...
And I would add one other thing. So where it does impact us is more product line wide. For example, the storms in other areas of the country drive up the rates for everybody. So that does impact CA. We have a just about pristine auto liability record, and yet our auto liability premiums continue to go up because of experience in other areas. So as a, as sort of a national community, we can't get away from that.
Renee?
So I guess as we leave this conversation on natural disasters, or don't leave it, I think that as a board member, what I'd like to know is if you can, and they don't have to be exact numbers, I don't need exact numbers, give us a general idea over the last 4 years, the amount of money we've spent on I'll call them natural disasters. And if you could also just think outside the box a little bit as to how should we budget for this going forward, because it's going to happen. I mean, it's not going to be less, it's going to be more. Even though I'm not a science major, I can see it's happening more, and give us an idea of what, if you think we should be budgeting, about what dollar amount you think we should be setting aside. And if we don't spend it, we can have a party at the end of the year. I'm good with that. But if we do need it, we're not destroying our budget to remove trees, clean up pathways, whatever we need to do after a tornado or other event.
I'll work on that. I'll see if we can pull that out. But if you do notice, in open space, there was a lot of tree work that wasn't budgeted, but they still met their budget overall. So we're still managing to.
Yeah, I agree that they've done that, but I didn't want to bring this up, but I will now that you've said that. Over in River Hill, we have tot lots with sandboxes that were never cleaned this year. And we have people who are blogging about it. So I applaud Open Space for meeting their budget because it was difficult. They've been busy, and it's been beyond anybody's wildest dreams. And I'm not going to say anything else other than they've worked a lot of hours. I've talked to some of the crews that, as they go past my house, I live right on the path, and they've been working a lot of hours, and they're working hard. So I have nothing bad to say, but they've met their budget, but our tot lots are a mess. So somewhere they've met their budget, but what people have come to expect in Columbia isn't necessarily happening. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I'm not faulting Dennis or any of his crews because I've gotten to know them, and they're great people, and I only have good things to say about them. But we're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Okay.
Alan?
I guess I just want either you or Dennis to affirm that, or did that department or other departments make their budget by eliminating services that would normally have happened?
Sure.
Okay. So for me, that's, I guess, not quite making budget. It's reducing services. They didn't spend more than they were budgeted for, but they weren't anyway. So there's different ways of looking at that. I guess let me ask my other question again on this. We're being asked to make some decisions tonight about some numbers. Pending, I know you don't have answers for Renee's question about how we might, out of the box, think about these budgets. Would the answer to those questions impact the numbers we're about to vote on tonight?
So I would say no, because we've already anticipated those things. So the operating parameter we're suggesting be reduced, that we actually have more, move it from 3.8 million as a bottom line to 3 million as a bottom line, which would give us more flexibility in those expenses. And reducing the capital budget from $20 million to 15 puts less pressure on our borrowing needs and helps us with our cash flow. So I feel like that's what we've done in presenting these recommendations to you.
Dick? And then we're going to have to kind of wrap up Nancy.
Well, regarding the tot lots, when I lived in Chicago, we had a big tot lot in our development, and the parents looked after it. And I'm just wondering if maybe we should try to foster a sense of ownership among the parents to look after these things and clean them up and take care of them, and as kind of a neighborhood cleanup sort of thing. Something to think about.
I think that's a totally different discussion from the financial parameters. So let's just kind of get back to the financial parameters. Nancy?
I just want to ask about on the aquatic summary. I saw this startling number of 1,157.6% loss, and I just wanted to understand it.
Where are you at?
In the final financial report, the fourth quarter financial, or the first quarter financial report.
It's the
No.
fourth quarter.
It's
Are
the
you-
fourth quarter.
What
Page
page?
It's page 19.
19. Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay, so that line, Nancy's looking at the gain or loss on fixed asset disposals. So we had budgeted a $38,000 loss based
Right.
on what we thought would happen with some capital projects. In our work on cleaning up our balance sheet, as I talked about before, and we focused on accounts receivable and the fixed assets, there $460,000 of that $479,000 loss is related to swim center renovations and pulling off of the balance sheet, off of the fixed asset records, assets that were removed in that renovation that had not been fully depreciated.
Okay.
So that's what that is.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
My eyes just
Yeah,
popped.
right, I understand that.
Okay, so let me kind of get back. Budget parameters. So what we're talking about is the increase in net assets figure for the operating budget is $3 million. The capital budget is $15 million. The inflation rate is 3%. The interest rate is 4.5%. Annual charge stays the same in the cap. And the membership one was, the one the board wanted was increase of 2.5 to 3%. Okay, that's what we're voting on. Is there a motion to approve those parameters? Dick moved. Is there a second?
I'll second so we can
Sure,
discuss.
Nancy. Okay, now let's.
So we're going to talk about the neighborhood centers, and that eventually is going to become another cost. So I am proposing that we increase from the 68% rate to, let's go to 70% rate.
70 cents?
70 cents.
70 cents, sorry. What the heck? Because it will impact people very minimally. I mean, it's like, what, $30 a year or less for the average homeowner in Columbia, maybe $20 a year. And that would certainly make a big difference when we're talking about these neighborhood centers. It's going to become another big capital outlay.
You said you're proposing, is that a motion?
I'm making a motion.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on raising the annual charge rate from 68 cents to 70 cents?
Well,
Jenny?
if you raise it, you can't guarantee that it'll go towards a specific thing that you might want it to go to. Part of a budget process. It simply puts more revenue,
Right.
potential for more revenue in the budget, but it doesn't, it's not a line item thing. You can't say the increase is, I don't know what, 500,000 a year?
Yeah.
I
it's
forget
roughly.
what a penny
A
is.
million if we have 2 cents.
Is
2
it-
cents
is-
is about
I'm
a
sorry.
million.
What?
What's the question again? I'm sorry.
The question is, if you raise it, what is 1 cent? What would 2
1
cents?
cent is almost $600,000.
Okay, so 1 million too. You know, unless you specify that that's to be used only for that, it's not a line item budget thing, so it goes into the pot. So there's no guarantee that what you want will be accomplished at all. It could be other people want it for something else. I don't know what. I understand what you're saying, but
It'll
All right.
take,
All right. So Dick, Shar, you had a.
I'm very concerned about raising anything in our assessment. The assessment increases naturally as property values go up and as buildings come online. And when you artificially, as say, you jump in there and raise it, you're really waving a red flag at our residents, and it's going to have a negative effect on our reputation. And we have a value perception problem right now where people already think they're paying too much and not getting enough. And we've got to correct that value perception problem before we start jacking up our taxes, as it were.
Okay. Shari, and then Nancy.
And now,
Oh, I'm sorry, Andy.
that's I know I had.
Yeah, I think my concern is that we do continue to have very large maintenance and retrofitting for CA assets, our facilities of various kinds. And I understand the reason for setting the amounts at $3 million and $15 million. But one of the things about the retrofitting is that it only becomes more expensive when you wait and you put it off. And there is already a sense of vulnerability in some of our older neighborhoods, and a sense that the things that are newer that have gone into some neighborhoods, other neighborhoods have been left out. So that's another part of the perceptual problem. The thing about raising the amount, there was a recommendation, I believe, to raise the amount 1 cent, but putting it off from this budget cycle. And in some sense, I worry that's maybe kicking the can down the road. So I guess one of my questions is, do we have additional residential revenue coming on board within the next 2 years from continued development in Columbia?
So there's a little bit of residential revenue because I think one of the buildings in downtown is going to be condos, but most of it would be commercial from our standpoint because CA looks at apartments as commercial. There's a commercial owner, not a residential owner. So yes, there's definitely, well, as you know, there's more revenue coming, and the 10-year plan shows some increase in that.
Have we calculated that into our analysis?
When we've calculated it into the FY22 budget, you know, the 20 budget, and looking at the 21 and 22 forecasts, and we used we had a schedule of the construction from Howard Hughes. It's a few years old, but we've used that to develop the 10-year forecast. Yes.
Okay.
And then other than that, there's not a lot of, the big unknown would be Gateway, but that nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, and that's looking pretty far
right. And we
down
didn't, the village centers, those are, there's difficult to predict. I think we included one, but not the others. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I guess that the one thing that stands out to me in relation to what Renee was saying is that I do think we have greater environmental vulnerability, and that has not been calculated into our budget analysis in the past. I think it needs to be looked at in a different way, whether you call it a rainy day fund or whatever. But I suspect that there will be more flooding, more catastrophic types of events, and I would like to see that in some way set aside as a special fund. If the rate went up 2 cents, clearly we would have a pot to pull from for that specific kind of funding, which we haven't had before. And I believe that if we're put to the community in that kind of way, there would be some good understanding about what that money was going for. I think people get that. They get that from their own experience on their own property and what they're dealing with right now as individual homeowners.
Nancy, Alan, Jenny, and Dick.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm absolutely mindful of what both of you have said. I think we would run the risk if we simply up the rate without real good explanation and preparing the ground. We could get blowback. My big concern is that, except for random statements where somebody mentions raising the rate in the middle of the year and people go, oh, we never stand for people never stand for that. We only talk about the rate 2 weeks in the year. We talked about it 2 weeks ago, and we talk about it now. So we aren't really planning. We aren't thinking strategically. We aren't really thinking holistically. So I would be okay, I think, for all the reasons. I mean, now we've got, of course, now competing interest for where that money ought to go. But I'd be okay putting it off, but only if we're going to say, I'd be okay with saying we have an intention to raise it 1 cent next year and another cent the next year or whatever, given a really good, and I don't mean this in the worst sense, marketing, a real good community outreach program, a real good explanation, a real good making sure the community understands why it is we're doing what we're doing, so that it's not just dropped on them all of a sudden some Thursday evening that we make this decision.
Okay, Nancy, Ginny, Dick.
I think, well, I wouldn't recommend putting it off beyond next year, and we can't do it now. It's got to start for FY '21 to begin with. And I also think that it's something that it's marketing any product. I mean, this is Columbia. It is aging. We have facilities. We also have climate change issues, which I totally agree with. And I think that we need to be prepared for that. And I understand more properties are coming online, but those more properties means that we have more that we need to also take care of. It's not that they're not going to also cost us money while they're coming online. So I'm not worried about people complaining about it, because for $20 or $30 a year that it will cost the average homeowner, I think they are getting that much more for their dollar. And I think they love Columbia and would certainly understand and appreciate that cost. We have not increased it in I don't know how many years. Is it 10 years or something?
It's been in the last 4. We increased it before.
We increased the cap.
The
and
cap, but
the
not
cap,
the
sorry.
rate.
No,
Last
the-
year?
the
Was it
rate
last year?
hasn't been increased. The rate's been decreased, actually. So it's the legal limit's 75. It was reduced to 73 cents quite some time ago and reduced to 68, I think, in 2005 or so.
Okay, Dick.
2003.
I think Shari made a very good point that this is going to take some serious marketing. If we're going to sell it, we got to position this properly. It's going to be a challenge. I think it's particularly going to be a challenge after we've already had our CBA debacle, which caused a lot of negative attitudes towards CA in the community. And I will say that when I was out campaigning, the one thing that people have said to me over and over again, you know, when I asked what they were looking for, what they wanted, what, you know, et cetera, the only thing anybody ever said to me was, don't raise my rates. So if you're looking to walk into a tornado here, raise the rates. But if we're going to do it, let's make sure we do it in do it very carefully.
Ginny.
Yeah, Susan, did you account for Hickory Ridge potential development there, or is that too soon?
Did we put Hickory Ridge in?
One village center, one unidentified village center used an estimate because things were so up in the air with Hickory Ridge.
I get it, okay. Okay, so for this budget, there's a possibility in your mind that you may bring in more revenue from one village center.
It's
2
not,
years from now.
22 cycles in the 10 years.
it's right, it's out farther than that. There's no way that's
It won't
going to
be
be.
Oh,
ready
okay,
next
okay, that's
year.
what I was trying to
Right.
figure out.
Okay, so you were asking specific for this, no, there's no village center
Okay,
redevelopment in this one.
I thought you knew more about it than we did. The second thing is, in terms of what Dick's talking about, public input, we really didn't propose this to the public to give them a chance to comment, yet we'll be voting on it, and that really, you know, we'll be just changing it tonight, and that's a real concern that I have. Also, I hear what you're saying, $20, $30, but I also hear a lot of people just feeling and angry that we should be cutting the CA budget, that we're spending too much on things that are totally, from their point of view, not relevant anymore, and I'm not going to go down the list of what I keep hearing you should be doing away with, but,
$1
so,
million for the
What?
board.
I'm sorry, what?
$1 million for the board.
Okay, that's not, Jenny has the floor.
No, I didn't hear what he said, okay.
$1 million for the.
Oh, okay. Or 500 anyway, at least. So that's my concern, is there are people that see the other and just think we should do our job cutting the budget, and then we'd have money available for other things. That's what some of my board members were saying the other night. I'm going, okay, what? Give me a list, and they started giving me a list. So that's my concern.
Renee, and then I'd like to kind of move the vote on.
More than double time.
Yeah, I know, we're way over time here. All right, I'd like to take the vote on Nancy's motion, which is to raise the annual charge rate from 68 cents to 70 cents. All those in favor? Alan, Nancy. I got to write this down. So, all those opposed? Dick, Shari, Lynn, Janet, Ginny, Andy, Renee. Okay, so motion fails. So we'll go back. Can we possibly vote on the budget parameters? Oh.
I'd like to make a motion that we raise it to 69
Cents?
cents.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Nancy, okay. All right, any more discussion on that?
No.
Alan?
Well, I guess I would love to hear from the members who voted against. We've heard from a couple, but I'd love to hear from the other members. Are you satisfied to leave it where it is, and that's really your position? Are you willing to support raising if we are better about communicating this to the community? What are your thoughts? I'm not clear where the votes are coming from.
I'll just give you my
That's the only one you can give us.
Right. So I can't see raising it for fiscal year 21, which is where we're basically going to build the budget for now, because I believe the board really has to sit down and make some decisions. Where I can see raising it is in 2022, if what we say is we want to devote a significant portion of that increase to basically handling natural disasters, climate change. Think of it as putting it in a contingency fund, because you see, I think I can sell that to the community, but it gives the community a chance to respond. And it's kind of like what I said at the last meeting. We talked about this. I need to be able to sell this in my mind to the community. I can't do it right now, but I think Shari has hit on a very interesting idea that perhaps what we need to do is put some money aside for climate, natural disasters, things. And I can see where you could say, look, in order to do that, we just need to fund it with a penny increase and put, say, 500,000 of it aside, or I don't know, something. But so that was why I kind of said no, not for 2021. I'm certainly willing to consider it for 2022 if the board starts working on that to let the community know and say the focus is going to be for that. Renee?
I guess I would almost piggyback on what you said, that I would be willing to raise the rate if Susan gives us the data that says over the last 4 years we've spent $600 or $1 million on natural disasters, because then I can go back to my community and say, here's what we need to do. We're a community of 35 miles of streams, and we're going to have to do something to maintain the streams and to mitigate potential natural disasters. But to just arbitrarily raise the rate, I'm going to have a hard time.
I don't think this is arbitrary at all. I think that, and since it's not going to happen until next year, I think we have plenty of time to both explain the position and to hear from the community. And we need to start, I think that we put this off year after year, and this is one more thing we're putting off, and I think it's unfortunate. You don't build a reserve by doing it a penny rate increase, which I'm more than happy to do, just to get this started. But people are afraid of people saying, I don't want my rates increased. Do you want to live in a beautiful community? Do you want to have these mitigating issues so that we don't have to worry about having the floods and the trees and that nobody's going to be able to clear it all up? Do you want to have these neighborhood centers refurbished, or do you not want to have them? I mean, we can't have everything and not have some, we can't have an elevator in town center that we badly need. And I'm not joking about this, I'm dead serious. This is an issue that really needs to be dealt with without money. And we can't lower the fees for our sports and fitness because they can't cover their own costs. So we need to come up with something, folks. That's my plea.
All right, I saw Renee,
No, let them go first. I've already said something.
Shari, and Ginny.
Yeah, so I guess, Andy, I hear what you're saying about putting it off, but maybe I'm not understanding why we would have to put it off. We're having this discussion now, as Alan says, because this is the time that the board has to engage in this discussion. And if we're serious about recognizing environmental vulnerability, as so many organizations are, and in fact, I just read an article today about Moody's is looking at environmental impacts and ratings on communities and organizations. The sooner we get out ahead of this, the better position we are going to be in looking towards the future. So I do understand there's been a lot of thinking and a lot of work that has gone into examining this, but I think we've got a good chunk of time to deal with. We're not voting on the budget next month. Right. We've got a process here for communication. So, and the other question that I had to ask is just because we have not had a line item or rainy day fund in the past doesn't mean that the board can't vote for such an item now.
Right.
There's nothing that restricts us from doing that.
True.
I just want to make that point.
Ginny.
Yeah.
Alan. And Alan.
Okay. Oh, which one?
Alan had his hand up first.
Where'd he go?
Sorry.
Alan.
Well,
And then-
I would really love to hear from Janet and Lynn, who we haven't heard from, but I also haven't seen your hands, so I can't force you to talk, but the other two have been silent on it. So I'll just say that I would love to see a history of when the rates were lowered, because oftentimes boards, and I wasn't thinking, I was around, but I wasn't paying attention, boards follow political winds, and if there was some political wind that had us lower the rate, there's nothing more arbitrary about 0.69 than there is about 0.72 or 0.7. I mean, they're all arbitrary numbers. And given that we have a ways to go before our highest it could be, I think we got plenty of room and plenty of time to make this happen.
Susan can answer your question now.
So in the memo that was posted with the backup on the proposed annual charge, we note that the rate was reduced twice. So it was reduced from the 75-cent maximum that's allowed to 73 cents in 1992, and from 73 cents to 68 cents in 2003. And I'm sure Rafia could give some perspective on that 1992, but I would imagine that it was in response to the economic conditions at the time, which were poor. In 2003, that was the same time that the cap was instituted, and I think at that point it was a reaction from people's assessed valuations had increased so much, and they were complaining about having to pay so much. And now, those values dropped, they've recovered, so people are in a similar case now where their values are pretty strong and have increased lately, but subject to a cap.
And that's where I'm concerned that we're sort of living with reactions rather than thoughtful decisions. And why not make a thoughtful decision to start addressing some of the effects of the reactions?
Ginny, Dick.
Let Janica. She hasn't seen anything.
No, do you want? You don't have to. Oh,
Yeah, I just think we're not fiscally disciplined enough on the board, and I think that we have some difficult conversations to have before we raise rates to cover expenses.
Ginny, Dick, and then let's.
Real
try
quick,
to-
what I would appreciate, Dennis, I guess, had to leave, but the staff do, is really look at, are we getting our fair share of any environmental money from the county and from the state as an option? Is the county, and I'll be real brief about this, is the county paying for flooding and environmental catastrophes in the county? Then are we the ones paying for them in Columbia? Again, you know what I feel about us paying more both in the county to pay for the county things and in Columbia. So I'd like that looked into, and also the same with state. And the third thing that I mentioned at the last time was, if we can anticipate a need that will be very expensive, have we used the opportunity to ask the state delegation to put in a bill for part of that money from the pie that they get, which is just Howard County funding, to the delegation from the state? Have we done that? So those are, these are rhetorical questions.
That we have not done.
I know, but what I'm just saying is, in August, they start filing those bills or looking at the bills. So as I said at the last meeting, if we need $1 million for tree cleanup or whatever it is, I don't care what it is, let's do it. Or if it's something else where we can then save money in another fund and put it towards an environmental catastrophe, we've got to be doing that too before we raise any rates. That's all I'm going to say on this. Okay.
All right, Dick, and then I'm going to try to.
Okay. I think, Jeannie, you make a very good point. We should be asking the state to see what they can do to help us out. I think Andy also had a very good point, and that is we need some time to lay some pipe here and get the community behind us. If we can put this, if we can sequester this money in a environmental change lockbox, if you will, I think that makes it an honest thing that we're doing. And I just want to remind the board that the reason we're setting these parameters tonight is so Susan can build a budget out of what we come up with. And so the longer we hold off on deciding what we're going to do, I guess the harder it will be for you to put a budget together.
That's true.
All right, I'd like to take a vote on the motion that Shari made to raise it from 68 to 69 cents.
When? For which year?
That's what, because
The year we're talking
For
about.
this
this is what
budget
she was,
coming up.
for this budget coming up beginning in 21. Right,
For May,
right,
May 1, right.
right. Okay, all those in favor of that motion? Alan, Shari, Nancy. All those opposed? Dick, Lynn, Janet, Ginny, Nancy, Renee. All right, I'm going to take a vote on the actual motion we
Nancy
have.
did not vote twice. She only voted once. You
Oh, I'm
mentioned me for the,
I'm sorry.
You mean you, Andy?
Andy, Andy.
Andy,
Yeah.
Nancy, you know.
I can't write and I can't write and talk at the same time. Sorry. I'll try to do this better. Wait a second here.
So there's 3, 4, and 6 against.
Yes. All right. I'd like to take a vote on the motion, which was to approve basically the recommended parameters, which I had already meant. All right. All those in favor of that motion,
which was this?
which was the
This
15 million, the 3 million in operating, keeping the rate the same, to 2.5% per membership. Did I miss anything?
Inflation rate and interest rate.
Yeah, increase in net assets 3 million, capital 15 million, inflation 3, interest 4.5%. Annual charge stays the same, and then membership rate increase 2.5% to 3%.
And reducing
That was
Dennis's
moved
salary
and
by
seconded
50%.
already.
That was removed in second. That's the motion that's on the floor.
It's on the floor.
All right, point of information.
Sure.
The item that was written that said on page 2, and I think it was that 2-page memo, said that if the amount was over 1%, the staff will make changes without coming back to the board?
That's for the second year budget. So those are that we would make them, you'd still have to approve the budget, but we would not come back to you and say, okay, the inflation rate was greater than 3%, can we apply a higher interest rate? We would build the second year budget with that higher
So you would
rate.
revise the draft second
Just
year
the second
budget
year.
to take that into
Correct.
account automatically?
Correct.
That's all
And then
that's
you would
saying.
still vote to approve or not.
That was the point of information,
Right.
because we do have a process for reviewing that second year. I just
Absolutely,
want-
and
Oh, yeah,
also
yeah.
approving the annual charge rate and cap for the second year separately as well.
All right,
Right,
thank
you
you.
do
Thank
that
you for
too.
clarifying.
All right, all those in favor of the motion? Renee, Andy, Ginny, Janet, Lynn, Dick. All those opposed? Nancy, Shari, and Alan. Okay, the motion passes. All right, let's go on to board discussion. Update on plans to renovate the Supreme Sports.
Oh, I'm sorry, what are we?
We're doing renovations of the Supreme Sports Club. Thank you, Dan. You get us off the budget for.
Let's talk about something else. I don't know if I can call it phase two. We
Is
have,
this in the
like-
packet?
No, because it's just a couple of screenshots that I couldn't, pull out.
Look, so if you look on the agenda under board discussion, item 1 is update on plans to renovate Supreme Sports Club. Okay.
So it's hard to say phase two because we have 2B 1.375 and 2.6, but the next phase that we're going to start here. So starting in the end of August, we'll start work in the arena, replacing the track, and then refinishing the basketball and roller rink floor. And then we'll do more extensive work, extensive, on the roller rink floor next year. We're going to devote this time to doing the track, and that'll last until about mid-October. But the whole track will be replaced. It's coming up in multiple phases, and it's not big. The big piece of the upcoming renovations, we know the upstairs locker rooms are being done. They're on track. I was pretty shocked the first time I walked in and there was nothing in there. It's a pretty big space. That's on track to open up around the beginning of September, as well as the pool, although one of the HVAC units is being shipped late. So it looks like we'll have to close the pool for a week in late September for about a week to put the new unit on. So there is that little hiccup there. But the big renovation for the next phase will be the lower level locker rooms and the upstairs fitness center.
So, just so I understand, so when does the pool reopen? After the upstairs locker room is finished?
It'll open up the same time the upstairs locker rooms reopen,
And that is about,
somewhere after Labor Day.
okay.
And then later in September, we'll have to close it for a short period of time to put the new unit on.
And so are there clippers, swimmers at the Supreme?
That's all being taken care of. The aquatic staff, the group fitness, everybody's already on top of it and making all the contingencies.
Thank you so much.
When you say making contingencies, is that going to cut into open swim time at other facilities?
Now, they'll go to the program pool, some will go to, because we still have Swansville, or, sorry, Stevens Forest open. So, no, it should not interfere with the normal time. Okay, so, let's start with the lower level locker rooms. Walk and talk, so you understand this. So these are the design boards for lower level locker rooms. The finishes are the same that are going to be up in the upstairs locker rooms. The private lockers, private showers, the white tile with the blue and white detail. So the lower locker rooms will be very well appointed and will definitely match upstairs.
Are they wider showers? I told you about the ones at Wild Lake that people were not happy with at the swim center.
these ones are the existing showers.
Oh,
We're not taking, the
They're
lower
not
locker
taking
rooms
them
not
down.
being gutted and redone because they already had individual showers.
okay,
So the wet areas are staying the same. Whatever was in there are in there. They're just gonna
okay.
be cleaned up. The big changes happen in the locker room area. Previously, you had to walk down the hallway to the racquetball courts and then walk back here, and the entrances were here and here.
Mhm.
The big changes were moving the entrances to the main lobby.
Yeah.
So the men will enter here, and the women will enter their locker room from here. So it'll be right off the main corridor, right in.
Makes more
The
sense.
women, I think, actually get a little more space, Dennis, right?
Yes.
That's good.
And the women's was actually already bigger than the men's downstairs. But, so there's a lot of configuration there, but the big change are the ease of access for the locker rooms and being able to get off the main floor and not have to go
What's the
back.
red line?
That's just to show the delineation between the two locker rooms. Storage is in here. This is all the men's. This is the laundry room, and this is all the women's.
When does it start and when does it finish?
This will start, it is about September 16th, and it'll finish sometime in mid to late November.
And if there's other locker rooms, people just use the other ones, or are
Yeah,
there
yes,
things,
there's locker rooms.
or are there things that'll be closed at Supreme because of that? Besides the locker rooms being closed, will there be other things closed at Supreme because of the?
Not because of this, but because we're renovating that, there'll be other things closed, and that's what we're going to discuss next. So there is a second piece to this renovation. It is the upstairs fitness area, the main cardio. This one. So this will be the upstairs fitness area. Right now, this area here is the package plan, old package plan plus room, so there's a glass wall that runs down here. This is the other half of the room, so we are opening up this whole space, so it's one big fitness center, you're not locked in.
So this side's the parking lot? And
Yeah, the tribe room is here.
yeah, okay.
So this is you come in from this way,
Okay.
the upper,
Mhm, mhm.
and then the lower.
Uh-huh.
We come in, the check-in desk is over here. So you can see we've opened it up completely. Much like we've done in the other facilities, we're going to open up the ceiling right now. This ceiling is opened up and has a tremendous amount of height. This one is not, so we're going to open up this ceiling. The hallway that runs down the middle, we cannot open up the ceiling there, so there will be the drop ceiling that runs down the middle. But both of the workout areas, which are the important areas, will have more height and more ability to work.
And the better floor.
Yeah.
Jenny?
One of the big complaints was the need for a stretching area so that you have somebody doing weights on top of your head, and
So
Proper
as you
weight.
notice, there's this big blue space here.
Yeah, that's
There's
what I was
going to be
wondering.
some equipment there. It's not going to just be a big blank floor. It'll be like the space that if you've been to the athletic club, there are units.
yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of floor space here. And then, as I acknowledged, the stretching room that we built looked better on paper than it actually worked out to be. It's up here in this space. The amount of space that we had before, the floor space was about the same, but it's a closed up room, so it didn't come out the way we wanted. So with that,
Is there a color code to all of this? The chartreuse and the blue.
those are just, no, that's sample paint colors.
Okay, so they're actually.
Yeah. So, looking into, the equipment's laid flat so you can see, but you can see what equipment would be. So this is the area going back to that stretching room. So we're going to open up that wall, that doorway a little more, because right now it's a single door. We can't open it up more. This is a structural wall. So we're limited in what we can open up. But the other thing we're going to do, and you can kind of see it here, is right now this is a completely closed wall with just a window. That's being dropped down, and it's going to be a hip wall. So members will be able to use it for stretching, but it'll open up the room so you don't feel like you're in a closet anymore. So this space will become much more functional, but then we'll also have this space down here for stretching and for more floor type work.
So what is this room next to the street?
This one?
Yeah, what is that?
That's the personal trainer's office.
That's the smelly little room that people.
When you say you're opening up the ceiling, is that just like toward the roof, or is there something above that's going away?
Well, there's ductwork and things that have to be cleaned up. You'll see the roof from the underside.
But that's all, it's not like we're losing a room above because of opening
No,
the
no,
ceiling.
it goes straight to the ceiling.
Are these other offices up in the upper right-hand corner?
Storage rooms, and
Dan, the room you're talking about with the brown and the blue, that's the current little closet room where everybody, it's crowded in there and smelly and, okay. So you're going to open it up a little bit. I thought I'd describe it better so you would know which room I meant. That's across from the offices, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where are you going to put the bar, the stretch bar or ballet bar that I keep getting complaints about that you guys took away? And
so that hip wall will become its own stretch wall. I mean, it's now it's a hip wall, so it'll be designed to be able
like
to
a bar
stretch.
that's normally on a wall.
Yeah, it's just that wall becomes that bar. It's built in.
Will people be walking by there, though? Will that be kind of awkward?
No, because we'll be going right into. No, and very few people go back here. They will only go back to the bathroom. It's not a high traffic area. You're going to come right in and go right into the room.
So, okay, you're not putting anything else back with the wall that you guys had said you were
I
going to
don't
do?
know 100%. I'd have to double check.
Could you double check? Because I had got a yes, you are going to put a, whatever you
Well,
call
then
it,
maybe
ballet
Tony's
bar,
going to.
stretch bar. Okay.
Dan, are you still gonna have, the small lockers where people can just
Yes.
run in and
Yeah.
put a bag and that kind of?
I cannot take those away.
No, you can't.
No. I got grief when I changed them. They are not going away. I've never been in any place where I've had as many lockers outside of the locker rooms as I do here. I cannot get rid of them, so they're staying.
What?
Can you put a coat rack in the women's gym though?
Yeah.
Because there used to be one in the hallway that was taken out, and now there's nowhere to put your coat. And then
I'll talk to Todd.
That's a good
Um, just,
And where are the weights going to be? Is there gonna be a separate weight room area?
free weights are downstairs,
What?
but all of the strength equipment is, all of this around here. This is all the strength equipment, this is all the cardio equipment, the treadmills are here. We are reorienting this equipment to face out the windows rather than face that front wall.
Oh, okay.
So it'll give a better view rather than just staring at the front wall the whole time.
Will these, the strength equipment be the same as other clubs?
It'll be the same as the athletic club.
Okay, so you can move from one club to the
I'm
other.
moving,
Yeah,
as
that's
we
right.
replace these things, trying to make things as standardized without being as cookie cutter as possible. So yeah, so people can go from one club to the next and be able to just use that machine without thinking about it. We're gonna be moving to the same line of equipment. And the athletic club is the newest line,
Good.
and it's a very good line, so that's what we're going to.
When the athletic club was closed, you know, I went to the other clubs and I had to change all my settings.
Yeah, and so we're working our way through that. And this is just a view of if you were standing up by the door to that stretch room in the upper, what it looks like looking back into the back of Planet Plus. You can see how open it's going to be, and how much more user-friendly it's going to be than the little chopped up things that we have now.
Are there gonna be any benches,
Yeah,
in any of these areas?
there will be some around.
Oh, the benches are being taken out.
Because people do have used those and, you know, I think they're significant.
People like to sit around.
Actually, people sit on those benches.
All right, any other questions?
Sit around.
You gotta fix your shoes or whatever. Yeah. That looks
All right.
nice. I think it looks great.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And keep informing the members like you did for the first phase, because that worked well.
Yep.
All right, development tracker. Welcome, Jessica.
Good evening.
Hi.
I'm gonna go a little low tech tonight. Most of the meetings I was gonna report to you have already occurred, and I double checked, and there's no meetings scheduled for August because everyone's going on vacation.
Yay.
So mostly was gonna sit down with you guys tonight and ask if you guys had any questions about the development tracker and any of the meetings that occurred over the last month or coming.
What happened last night?
Yeah, what happened last night?
Right, so it was actually a rather short night at the Hickory Ridge Development Center. This is the first time that the public could cross-examine the the Department of Planning and Zoning staff about the technical staff report. So that was the only testimony that I got through last night. It was almost entirely that. So they will reconvene on September 4th to continue the zoning board hearing case on that, and they've also reserved September 25th for the second time that they plan to reconvene about the Hickory Ridge Board Center.
Has the plan changed much?
No, the plan and none of the documents, none of the submission has changed since 2017. It was originally submitted, other than the Hickory Ridge Village has submitted an addendum to their original community response statement. And I think there was one or two small changes that the applicant submitted, but those date back to 2018. So nothing has changed since we reported that.
And you used the word testimony. Was this one of their quasi-judicial things, or was it just a regular planning board meeting?
Because they're not the planning board, it's the zoning board hearing, so it is set up a little bit like quasi-judicial, but it's different than what you see in a planning board case necessarily. So since essentially...
Planning board or a zoning board case?
So
I'm confused.
This was a zoning board. So
Okay.
this is the zoning board looking at the actual preliminary development plan that is submitted under the new zoning changes that were made under Newtown zoning. Anytime the village center wants to change, they actually have to go back to the preliminary development plan level, and then the prior zoning board had to essentially decide what criteria apply to that, because originally preliminary development plan was only set up to be for the development of setting up new Newtown districts. So they essentially said what has to apply is a limited criteria from that. So basically, if you watch the thrilling 2.5-hour video, it is a discussion of the technical staff providing the technical staff report being questioned by the zoning board and by the public who had signed up to be in opposition to the development. And then it will pick back up exactly where they left off back at DPC staff. Any particular questions about that?
Well, so as you think about how that redevelopment fits with the general Columbia plan,
Well,
what might you suggest ought to be our concerns about it?
Well, I think up till now, I'm fairly familiar with the plan. Up till now, I think it is a matter of letting the village take point on their concerns, since they have raised opposition to the project, and they have not necessarily brought it forward to the CA board to request your support in either direction. Looking at the actual site plan, my professional opinion is that it reflects modern aesthetics in terms of how we want to design our gathering and urban spaces, and how we want to find our community gathering spaces. That determining whether that is something that is desirable to the community or not is more of a subjective decision. So I concur with DPC planning staff in the fact that it meets that the current plan meets all the criteria a village center is supposed to meet, and then it just becomes a matter of personal choice of whether you like the proposal as it looks. And so if the board wanted a more detailed look at that, we could go through every element, but I certainly, my professional opinion is I don't want to step in front of the village board since they are so actively engaged with it, and it's their village and they do what they want to do with it.
It is their village, I guess, for me, since we said one of our priorities this year is to take a lead in advocacy. I don't want to be hamstrung by that. And for me, it's if we felt like we were in agreement with the village board, I'd want us to lend our weight, whether they ask for it or not. And if we were in disagreement, I'd want us to say what our position was as having that larger view of Columbia.
I think the net public unfortunately, the member from Hickory Ridge is not here tonight to provide feedback from where her village is at. I would recommend, we certainly have time to have that more detailed discussion. I would recommend starting first with asking the CA of Hickory Ridge to talk with the village about what they want from CA board. I think right now their current position is that they want to support it, but they want things to change. And I've read their addendum, and I'm not sure how much of what they've asked to change can realistically be achieved. So that's a very detailed discussion.
Okay. Ginny and then Dick.
Yeah. So if I understand what you just said, it was hard to hear, that the Hickory Ridge Village Board is supportive now? They weren't in the past?
Yeah.
Okay, with conditions?
Yes.
Or with requests?
With conditions, essentially. They're saying,
could-
we are supportive of this if you change it.
Okay, so their position has changed from a couple of years ago?
It's changed from saying we oppose this
Right.
because it does not meet the things we want it to lead to.
Right.
We will support this if you give us these
Okay.
items to change.
Is there any chance you could get us that?
Yeah, it's publicly available, actually.
What the
Hickory
conditions?
Ridge has it posted on their village website, but I will send
Okay.
you guys the directly.
Thank you.
Dick.
Is the main point of contention the apartments?
I do believe it's the apartments and particularly the height of apartments. The community plan for the Hickory Ridge Village wanted to limit all development height to 36 feet, which would essentially be their 3 short stories. And the current plan shows it as, I think, being 4 to 5 stories depending on what side you're on. So,
But they're not concerned about the rest of the plan particularly, they're
I don't want to speak for them. I would guess anywhere between 120 to 200 people came out last night.
Oh, boy.
So that public response from the village ranges from enthusiastically supportive of the redevelopment to absolutely against it. And so that's why, speaking on behalf of all the villages, when the village is still having that internal discussion, is difficult for us to necessarily say from my position, because it would just be my one planning professional opinion versus an entire village. And so that's why essentially we've been mostly closely monitoring and making ourselves available.
Okay.
Nancy?
You miss Wild Lake.
I did.
And it's a shame because you're going through the whole thing all over
I
again.
have to say, it's not been too painful because we have, so it's mostly just watching it.
Yeah, people don't like change, that's the bottom line.
Right.
Okay, any other questions for Jess? Sorry. And then Dick.
I just, in going through the items that you listed, there are a whole bunch of requests that are all in the Guilford Industrial Park. So there's the Fort Knox Self-Storage, and then there's Stonewood Business Center. And so the self-storage, seems to be a lot of self-storage going up. Is that one of these infill things that?
The Guilford Self-Storage Fort Knox is an existing self-storage facility. They have recently added on to their business to have a U-Haul business attached to them. And there's been some conflict with a lot of the U-Hauls being parked on public street. And so they had added a gravel parking area sort of on their property but attached to the street.
So it's very close, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was not allowed because it's supposed to be a landscaped area there. So they had sort of stealth created this parking space. There was a complaint, the county created outside of them and said, if you want that space, you have to go through the variance process. So this was a request by them to basically make a parking space they'd already made legal. And it was denied by the Board of Appeals because they did not meet the criteria required under a variance application. That site is also different, and you guys are probably not very familiar with variance cases because Newtown doesn't have them. But that particular parcel is split zone, which means half the parcel is in Newtown and half the parcel is the remaining N1 zone that was there before Rouse.
Oh, joy.
And so the particular land area that was being considered and where they wanted to put what was the N1, and therefore the N1 zoning requirements and the variance was.
How do you keep track of this?
Well, you pay me to do this.
I'm in awe.
I hope a great deal.
And also I attend a meeting, so But that's essentially what happened there. And we were just monitoring it because we were interested in that particular case and how it was being applied. So essentially, this is an item, I think they'd be very to see.
Okay.
Dick?
Thank you.
You got my note on the Dorsey Overlook
I did.
pre-submission? Yeah, it's, they keep changing, and they are going back to the, to DAP, because they say they really want to get DAP's approval. And I get the impression they're beginning to realize that they're not out on Route 40, that, you know, they have to be sensitive to the neighborhood.
Yeah, Dorsey Overlook has a challenging site.
Oh, it
That's
is,
one
yeah.
of the reasons they're having to go through a lot of design review. And that's, they're going to keep going through the process.
Well, one of the people at the meeting made an interesting point. They said, you know, if you just tried to play ball with us, you know, like put some solar cells on the roof, or put in a bigger retention pond, or more landscaping, or something that showed some sensitivity to a leads review or something, that'd probably make people happy, but they have a hard time realizing that. And so we'll see what happens when they go back to DAP.
Yeah, I think we'll just continue monitoring it.
Mhm.
And essentially, it's going through the process the way it should. And I think the process has been not smooth, but it's been doing what it needs to do.
So, any other questions for Jeff? No, thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
good
it.
night.
Okay, next up, we have Dennis. Welcome, Dennis.
Not there.
So while we're waiting for it to load, I would say to answer Alan's question, so we only have a limited number of team members. And so if we have storm cleanup, they're not doing like tot lot cleanup, they're doing storm cleanup.
Well, I get that, but that's, as she just said, that's why we pay people. So we could always hire more people to do.
I'm not sure the answer is to hire more, because it's such a cyclical event, and I'm not sure when there's gonna be the next storm.
I get
So,
that.
But, so the answer would be
Get
yes,
your
we do
Farmer's
that.
Almanac out.
Just make it easier on myself.
So can I just say something here? My intent in saying that the way we met the budget was not to clean up our tot lots, was not to demean the work that goes on in open space. Because I see those guys out there all the time. I mean, they park right next to my townhouse. They do. They know when it's hot, and I see them. I bring out some water for them. They're great guys. But I would like to know that if we're foregoing cleaning up tot lots or cutting grass or whatever because we have a storm, and that's how we're balancing the budget, I want to know as a board member, because that tells me that in fact we have to increase the assessment or take money out of something else or do something to make the budget work for open space. Because I do want Columbia to look as nice as it should and can, and I do want to make sure that after Susan gives us numbers that we make whatever budget adjustment or line item or whatever Susan feels is appropriate to make sure that in the future for environmental issues that we have money set aside. So I don't want you to feel like I'm picking on you.
I didn't feel that way.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I mean, I have pictures. People are sending me pictures.
I should, but I wasn't.
Okay.
So I can tell you with certainty that if there's a storm event, we're deferring some maintenance. So the guys are gonna switch gears and they're gonna move clean up. And we are not at the end of the cleanup, but we are certainly at the beginning of the end. So we're getting very close. And I'm still getting emails from people wondering when we're gonna get the trees out of their
Right,
backyard.
and I have some of those people, and if I can carry that conversation, just, if you have contractors, maybe we have like door hangers or something, and we just put, we were here, because that, they know where I live. And if you could just tell them to stick a door hanger on their door, we bulldoze through your property to take down a tree, then I can say, yeah, they did that. They would just, I mean, I just don't think, I think communication goes miles when it comes to people and their plants.
Understood.
That's all.
It does make a difference.
So we have something like 33 boardwalks in Columbia. Over the years, we have, last year we replaced 2, and those were the first 2 that we had replaced as long as anyone can remember.
Wow.
This year, we replaced 1. And the plan is going forward to try to replace 2 per year.
So may I ask, what is the useful life of one of those boardwalks?
It depends. I mean, it really, so actually the older ones tend to last longer because the treatment that they put in the wood was better.
Okay.
And so the newer ones just don't, the newer lumber doesn't last long. Now, if we go to fiberglass, we might get 35 or 40 years out of the stuff.
And what would be the difference in cost over treated wood and
Probably
fiberglass?
15% more for fiberglass,
Okay.
but if you can almost double the life, it seems like it's worth it. In addition to which, the deck boards aren't slippery on the fiberglass; they have grit in them, and from my own perspective, I think that's important.
Safer.
Sorry, and then Jim.
Dennis, are these boardwalks all going over streams?
Some of them go over wetlands. So we have bridges over streams and boardwalks in wet areas.
Okay, so one of the things I notice is that these newer ones kind of look like chutes. They're high.
Yes.
And so is there a reason why we're building these so much higher than the older ones?
To meet the current code.
The code for
The height of the railing at the bridge. So if you're a certain height above grade, you need to have a railing, and there's a code associated with that railing.
Safety thing.
So I think it's 30 inches. If you're more than 30 inches above grade, you have to have fall protection. And if you have that fall protection or that railing, it has to be a certain height. The older bridges and boardwalks don't meet that. And you're right, it looks a little bit like a chute, but that's the code.
that's really hard to. I mean, I can't see. You know, we don't have a person standing there. Can you see over that?
I can.
Oh, that was the question.
You have to get stilts for the rest of us.
Sherry, you can see through it. There's some holes there.
Okay, so you're saying that's the new code. That's county code.
It's got to
How high is that?
And how high
From the
is
deck
that?
to the top?
2 inches.
22 inches? 42. You could see
So
over
we
it.
have, in terms of bridges, we're replacing 8 to 12 bridges per year, and our goal is to get to 16. There are 265 bridges. And so, again, we have some deferred maintenance. The problem is that many of them are the same age. They all got old at the same time.
The nerve of them.
Dick had a question.
Well, actually, I had a question that got answered, but now I have another question.
Okay, and then,
I'm looking at the design of the bridge replacement, and it doesn't seem to have the same high wall
It would if we built it. It would next time we build it.
next time.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so now one of the nice things about this chute is kids aren't going to be falling through it.
But they don't do that anyway.
Actually, the next time we replace the bridge, it would be like the bridge on Fairway, probably fiberglass, which has the same height.
Well,
Alan?
so it seems like there's 2 factors. There's height and then there's gaps.
Correct.
And I guess, are they both part of the code?
Yes.
So the way, if you go back one
To
to that one, all of that is required to meet the code.
Yeah.
Couldn't have wider gap between the slats, or not have a top slat, or
So we might be able to, it's hard to tell the scale from here, but I think it's no more than, I think it's 3 inches or something.
Wow.
So I'll take a look at that.
I mean, because part of it is they call it shoot or whatever, just for, it feels like a pen. If there's was a way to open it up a little bit while still remaining within code, that'd be good.
So the people to complain to are the county council, right?
Pardon me?
The people to complain to are the county council,
I
right?
said
'Cause they
staying
approve-
within
Well,
code.
they follow the National Building Code.
Yeah.
Building code.
Right.
But they can change. They don't have to accept all of the National Building Code.
That's true.
Well, maybe next time you take a picture, you should have somebody in it so we get some idea of scale.
Okay, in the future, I'll get someone Suppose.
Somebody tall, somebody tall.
Somebody really tall.
Munchkin height.
So we're doing some locker room renovations. This is Dasher Green, and they include ADA upgrades.
Got a lot of comments. Thank you. People have enjoyed the new.
I have
Nancy?
a question for you. Stevens Forest locker rooms, or, well, the shower, and there's an odor that's been there for years. Is there any way to get rid of that thing?
That's where the bodies are hid.
Yeah.
So keep in mind that is an unconditioned space. So it's it's going to be really damp. It's not air conditioned.
Right.
Like an inside locker room or a gym locker room. So it would. I think you're always going to have kind of that humid. And I know that
It's worse than humid.
A nice job keeping it clean, but it's going to be hard to.
They do keep it clean, but it's got that odor. And that's the only, Hobbits does not have it, but Stevens does.
See,
I'll take a look.
we're getting attacked
Please.
again.
Maybe we can get a bigger exhaust fan or something.
Thank you.
Better
I think
class
it's
of people at
outside,
Hobbits.
not even inside.
Pardon me?
It's outside the door. You get it just as you're outside the door.
As you're walking in.
Yeah.
Okay. Shade structure Dasher Green. What's interesting about this is we switched from wood. We probably have repainted that wood shade structure 10 times. And it never really looked good. But the shade structures look great and they'll last a much longer time.
Oh, wow.
Football locker rooms were improved. ADA improvements were made. You can see the ADA shower and the skirt underneath the sinks.
These are all things I assume that were done before the summer, before the swimming season.
Yeah, exactly. We made some improvements to the Hawthorne wading pool and spa area, which included some shade structures, which have been very well received. Part of that was replacement of some of the decking area at Hawthorne. So interior renovations, Supreme Sports Club. I'd like to say to Nancy that we had room at the athletic club and we could go out. And so those are the most spacious showers that we have. At the swim center, we didn't have any room, so we had to fit the showers. And there's a certain number of showers that are required by code.
Oh, really?
And the code is based on the square footage of the pool and the depth of the pool, and you get a population count. It's not really that complicated, but there's a number.
Right.
And so we met that number. At the Supreme Sports Club, we're constrained. So the showers in the upper locker room are better than they were and are better than the swim center, but they're not as spacious as the athletic club. And the showers in the but we are required to have a certain number because there's a pool there. And in the lower level locker rooms, they're probably closer to the swim center to set your expectations. Because that's the space we
It's
have.
not mine, it's my friends
Or
who
your friends.
complain.
Yeah, yeah.
So if they want more spacious showers, they should go upstairs. Well,
I will tell them
But
that.
I've used the ones in the men's lower level locker room, and they're actually not bad. And they're
Or
going
go
to be
to
the
the
same
Haven.
width as they were.
If you had made the decision to keep with the gang shower at the swim center, would you have been able to get more shower heads in?
Yes, but it wouldn't be comfortable. I mean, it's interesting because I did use the Supreme a lot, and two people don't shower next to each other. It just doesn't happen. At least in the men's room. Maybe in the women's locker room it happens, but not in the men's locker room. And so if there's
Remember, Dennis, we're being recorded, okay?
that's my knowledge. But in reality, you don't have that many shower heads because people aren't comfortable. You don't want to be splashed. I don't want to be splashed by my neighbor's water. And so you want some space between you and your neighbor. And so it ends up that people don't shower in gang stalls, at least in our clubs. I didn't see people that tightly.
I go home.
So this is that's the wading pool area in the Supreme Sports Club pool. And as you can see, it's pretty torn up. What was interesting is that we found when we were doing the work there that we had great bonding, electrical bonding on all of the metal around the pool, all of the grab rails and the guard stands and the lights and everything else, but not in the deck. And you wouldn't think the deck would need to be grounded, but it actually is important because the deck could get saturated with water, and that makes it conductive. And so you have to have the deck grounded, and so we are in the process of taking the entire deck up.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So that we can install ground wires below the deck, so that if it gets wet and
When do you think this will be finished?
we'll open in September.
Really? That's impressive.
I like these windows with
So this is interesting. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to go by the Running Brook, but this is that the water journey improvement to the wading pool. And I personally was skeptical about how many kids want to play in 3 inches of water, but it has been very well received. And actually, we got a call from somebody who their kids absolutely love it. So it's interesting. And I don't have them here, but I got pictures of kids who were diverting the flow of the water. And so it's been very much better than, and of course, don't have a 2-year-old, but.
Dennis, when I was a kid, we used to put garbage bags over the sewers so that we could do that on our street. So.
That would have been a lot
So
cheaper.
the neighbor yelled at us.
Boston, I think.
John
So-
McCoy
so
could
Dennis,
teach
this-
stream stabilization.
This replaced the baby pool, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So, and it doesn't require a lifeguard because the water isn't more than 3 inches deep or something. So that, there are certainly guards in the pool area, but it's not manned the same way as a wading pool would have to be.
So Dennis, there'll be seating around this. I mean, ordinarily there would be chairs. and
There'll be
things
chairs around there. They're just not shown. That was an early picture.
And is this similar to what we had discussed at McGill? So that'll be a similar type of area put in there?
So I can't speak exactly for Marty, but I think I know that he has in mind something that would not require lifeguards. So this has this water journey pad, in addition to which it has some spray features also. So I presume, I can find out, but I presume it's the same.
Yeah, it looks very nice.
It's the same concept.
Okay, great. Looks wonderful.
And it's finished?
Yes, it's open. Kids are using it. This is just a quick picture of the July 4th cleanup. And as you can see,
It's wonderful.
It's an amazing amount of trash.
Did we sponsor fireworks or allow somebody to have fireworks at Hobbits on July 4th?
I don't know.
Because there were fireworks coming from that direction, might have been right on Willow Bottom, that were like real fireworks going up above the trees and bursts and.
Wow.
It's amazing to
it's
me
like-
how many people have fireworks in a state that outlaws them.
Oh, I didn't go over there, so I didn't know if it was like on the street and somebody did it, or if it was coming from the golf course or something.
Every year. That is so scary.
They're everywhere.
I didn't recall seeing a request for that.
I don't recall us talking about it. Thanks.
So this is an interesting program. As you are aware, we certainly taken down a lot of trees, and we're going to be able to reuse some of the trees here in the stream restoration project. And so, so that people wouldn't think that we had forgotten to clean up, we had signs made that it's beneficial reuse.
Good.
And that September, October, the trees will go into the stream. Managing the stream is mostly about managing the velocity of the water, because that's where the erosion takes place. And so these help to create breaks in that velocity and slow the water down.
This is a terrific sign. This is a really good sign, and this is the kind of information we need to give people.
I was marketing communications. I said, we have to have a sign, and they did a great job.
They did.
This is really cute. Can't make a difference. That's John McCoy in the purple shirt. And so what they did at Can't Make a Difference was we've got the kids here. I'm trying to make sure I'm on the right one. Yeah, so this is the one where we took the weed harvester boat and we scooped up some freshwater mussels out of the lake. And we took it over to the shore and had the kids look at those. And also there was, of course, some little fish to get caught in there. And we put the fish back in the lake. So it was really, well, I like to say it's painfully cute. Great program. So Jeremy had a air conditioner and dehumidifier recycling event at, it was at the sports park, and I think he collected something like 300. There was a line of cars that went all the way out to Parker's Farm Road.
Wow.
It was very well attended.
It really was.
And the new tenant in Swansfield and wanted us to open up the backyard, so to speak, of that neighborhood center. And this is just a quick cleaning job that we did. It's interesting that over time, what ages facilities and houses is when the stuff gets overgrown, and it becomes kind of a safety issue because you can't see behind it. And they talk about defensible architecture, and if you can't see what's going on behind there, it might be a problem.
Nancy?
Yeah, I have a question about the pollinator garden.
Did I
We-
say that one?
Yeah, we don't use that stuff that kills and causes cancer, right?
Yes, we do.
No, we don't.
Roundup.
No.
No, we don't.
Did you eliminate it?
We
Since
did.
when?
Oh,
So we stopped using it for our routine use, and I told my contractor maybe 45 days ago. And then,
I'm very happy to hear
and
that.
we put some aside, and I thought maybe we would use it for special circumstances like bamboo and other invasive species. But just today we discussed it, and we hadn't used it for those 45 days. We decided not to use it all. I'm gonna have somebody come by and collect it.
Yay.
I'm very pleased because I was scoffed at last August by this board for vehemently opposing Roundup. So,
Oh, no.
yeah,
was
there were
against
people who rolled their eyes at me. So I just am saying,
I was really
I'm very
upset
happy
when they
to hear.
used that on the bamboo, and we have to have these guys put up special fencing because
Well,
kids
no
were
one
chasing
supported me when I
behind it.
said that last August. I'm just saying.
Michael
So,
Cornell, as you recall, I'm sure,
I don't think we heard it.
fought that for a long time.
everyone heard it.
That was his
Doug
big
sitting in the
battle, so
audience
thank
and saw
you.
people all the time.
If you said it last August, you were saying it just to yourself. We will meet in August.
Right.
Can I just say one thing about the Roundup conversation?
would've
Could you please let the village managers know that we're
July.
not using it and that they've been asked sometimes by our subcontractors if they can use it? And they're saying yes in my village
You're saying yes?
because they don't know that they're not supposed to be using it.
So your village manager was talking to the subcontractors?
The subcontractor said to our village, I believe it was our subcontractor. Could have been another subcontractor, but I went out and looked and I asked our village manager and she said, oh, they asked me if they could use it. So they don't know that it's a policy.
We'll get the word out to the village manager.
Yeah, that's all. Just let them know that it's just not a safe product.
About the effectiveness, though, that people, just to prepare people for a
Yeah, so
change.
the effectiveness of the other things that are commercially available are not, they're just not as effective. And so we've been using Weed Avenger. Last year on the tot lots, we started using Weed Avenger, which is a citrus oil-based product. And I think the plants have now thrived. Anymore, right? I'm hungry.
It sure smells nice, right?
But the products that are out there just aren't as effective, but that's just part of the, if you want to move away from Roundup, that's, and the tot lots take more work because they don't clean up as quickly. Roundup is a one application kind of product. It's interesting, we're looking at a new system that hot water of the right temperature will kill plants,
Yes, it will.
but it has to stay on the plants. And so someone now makes a product that delivers hot water with a foam that's like coconut oil and olive oil and some other, creates
And
foam.
you can eat
And
it.
so the heat stays on the plants or the weeds until and long enough for them to die.
Wow.
It's a lot to, as you can imagine, it's a pretty big physical plant to take that thing around to all the different tot lots everywhere else. But we're looking at it, whether or not that would be effective for us. Because you let the foam just disintegrates and stays on the ground, and it's completely benign.
That's nice.
So the drop off, just so whenever we do something, there's always some work that takes place after the fact, and so we had a little problem with the drop off at the tennis club, and so our guys went in and did some work. And person before me. It's not going to be as effective as that.
Try switching it directly to the slideshow.
The little right below the slide, the bottom right corner of the slide is the little, up a little bit. To the right one, that's the one.
Brian, where are you?
Is the sound up?
Looks very nice.
But the sound, maybe the sound's almost all the way down.
There you go.
That works.
Is that Brian?
There we go.
My name is Brian Wood.
It's worth it.
There you go.
My name is Brian Wood. I am the Landscape Services Foreman for Columbia Association, and I've been with CA for right at 7 years. Landscape Services crew has 5 full-time members, and we have 1 seasonal who works 9 months out of the year. Landscape Services crew consists of people with plant science degrees. We have landscape management degrees, arborist certifications, pesticide certifications. So we have a lot of certifications. In a sense, we're like plant health care specialists. We try to maintain the plants, check to make sure they don't have insects or they're dying. We try to catch stuff before it gets too big, an infestation or something, before we destroy any of the other plants. Typical morning starts out, I have a morning meeting with the crew, and I've already had a pre-meeting with Jan the day before. And we would go over the priorities for the next day, and then at 6 a.m. we would have a meeting, just go through the priority list, and I would basically sort out who was going to what areas by the priorities. And then if it's dead of summer, we'd be watering. If it's just a regular day, we'd be doing maintenance, removing the weeds, pruning shrubs, pruning trees, watering, or even planting. It just really depends on what the priorities are. We were just recently over at Athletic Club fixing the pump for the actual waterfall. So we do a multitude of things, but our basic function is to make sure that the landscapes and the areas that our residents go in are beautiful and immaculate, that they want to tell their friends about and be like, hey, have you been to this park yet? Or have you been here? Because it's beautiful. Well, we do tree reforestation projects. Recently, we had this emerald ash borer that destroyed a lot of ash trees. So we're in the process of putting trees back in the ground. So that's how we're helping some of the problems, because Columbia's a pretty green city. So we try to, for the trees that were removed, we're trying to put more trees back in. It's a slow process, but we are definitely trying to do that to help the community. My favorite part of working for CA has to be planting and having the residents come up and just thank us. It's it feels really, really good. Sometimes when we're planting plants, residents are walking their dogs or just taking a walk, we'll just come up and say, thank you so much. You make CA look so much better, or Columbia look better. And that really feels really, really good. It feels like we're making a difference and people are noticing what we do. That actually feels good.
So Brian really does a great job. You met him. He's really enthusiastic. He loves his work, and sometimes it just drives me nuts. He's so upbeat all the time.
You hate that.
I have a question, and I often see, believe they're CA folks, like at the end of 108 and Harper's Farm Road, and they're planting what I assume are annual flowers to put some color around. Without getting too technical, what's the thought process between every year putting in new annuals versus putting perennials in, and then you don't have to worry about it?
Well, actually, that's a great question.
They're putting perennials in long reach.
So we are. So we're trying. So we started with the high traffic areas that are difficult to maintain, and we don't, not necessarily unsafe, but we'd like to move away from annuals. And we want to start a conversation about in other villages about pushing that out to other planter beds. It's also a sustainability program too, in terms of how much time and how much material and how much effort is placed on each bed. It's one of those things like, you know, some people want us to have to do, or want to be here. Other people want to live there. Some people don't like these, and some people really like the annuals and the color that you can't get from the. But we're looking into that.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Dan? Thanks, Dennis. Okay, on to the other discussion topic for tonight, which is tying advisory committee proposed charges to strategic priorities. And Jenny, you had some questions. You had some ideas.
Yeah. Well, not only tying them to our strategic priorities, that's one. I think we really should ask them to do that for their next reports, I guess, next June, but also that they have measurable goals. And I think that was pointed out by the head of the Watershed Committee. They need to show us a baseline, what exactly, if they have an event, they usually get X number of people. The goal for this particular undertaking is to do whatever, and then have they achieved it, and if not, why not, and maybe how they're going to improve next year or something like that. But it's so that you just don't see, well, we had an event, we had 30 people. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me. It's like, Helen.
I hear that, and I am all in favor of figuring out a way to make sure that the advisory committees know what our strategic goals are, so they can wrap that's the whole point of having things like that, so they can wrap their efforts and advice around those goals. I guess I'm not sure, besides multicultural, how many of our other committees actually do events. Because most of them are advisory committees. Multicultural is an activity. They also hopefully give us advice, but they're mostly more an activity committee. So I'm not sure, like for aquatics, I'm not sure what a measurable goal for the aquatics committee would be, since actually the aquatics committee, to me, ought to be advising us on what measurable goals we should be wanting for the aquatics department here at CA.
Yeah. Well, may I answer that? Yeah. Like take the climate, if they're saying they're going to reduce something, work with CA to reduce something, well then we should know where are we now and what exactly are they suggesting that CA do, because they're working really with CA on that. That was the goal, reduce something by 20%, 10%, whatever it is. Some can do goals like that, some can't, okay. But those that can, I'd just like to get something besides, we had, an event and 30 people came.
I get that.
What was your goal?
To me, it's the other way around. Is they're suggesting goals to us. We want to reduce whatever by 10%. Mm-hmm. Not we're asking them to reduce something because they're just advising us on what we should be doing. That's what I'm not clear about.
But when it comes to us, the board, there has to be something that tells us what that means, that the current situation is, in their report, and we set a goal together with CA staff to do blah, and we achieved it or didn't achieve it. I just want it in their report. Sure, they'll be working with CA, or they may challenge the board to say, one of the charges for the board would be that you do something, which is,
One of the things Jenny, I asked you to consider, given that as along the lines of Alan, that all the advisory committee may not have goals, but would you consider asking them to just look at their charges, and then when they come back for a report, is that reflecting their charges, what value add or how did they add to the quality of life in the community? Or how did they add value tied to one of our strategic priorities? Without it being a specific goal, all of them perform some type of action during the year, whether it's an activity or something.
Yeah.
How has that translated into a value add for the community?
Right, but what I was saying in addition to that, if it can be measured so that you have a baseline and then you can measure it, it should be measured. If it can't be, okay. Diversity, they said they were going to get 2 more minorities on their committee. That's their goal. It fits in with ours, and they did it. Or they couldn't because, or they, something that would be a little more specific if possible. It may not be with all the committees.
Alan?
I think what you're pointing out, though, is that there's for me, a fundamental, I don't know if it's a disagreement or just lack of clarity about whose committees these are. Because to me, they're not there to work with the staff. The staff are there to support them and give them some advice, but these are board advisory committees. They are to advise the board.
Right.
They are not responsible for reducing our CA's impact on the climate, our carbon footprint by 10%. That's the CA board and staff are responsible for doing that. So I guess I'd be loath, these are volunteers, I'd be loath to weigh on them with I don't want to have some kind of expectation that they have the ability to direct the staff. They don't have the ability to direct the staff. Shoot, we don't have the ability to direct the staff besides Milton. And I don't want them to think that we're putting our responsibilities off on them.
Sure. And then
Yeah, I understand what you're saying about that, but I think one of the goals of having the strategic plan and having the advisory committees is that we have people who are engaged, and we've been trying to think of ways to encourage greater engagement. And there are ways, if the committees refer back to the strategic plan, I think they will find sources for suggestions and maybe some encouragement for linkages throughout villages, throughout groups. So for example, the Senior Advisory Committee, there are representatives from each one of the villages. So all of the villages, that's a way of getting some involvement and engagement and understanding of our 5-year strategic plan. So this is sort of a natural bridge to our communities and then getting feedback from the communities through the advisory committees to the board. So I think this encourages the advisory committees to think maybe outside of their one individual area and think about impacts to the larger picture. So engagement and impacts to the larger picture of what CA is trying to accomplish and what they would like CA to accomplish. So I agree, not everything is going to be measurable in terms of percentages, but there can be requests for action through CA. They're not responsible for the doing, but they can certainly be encouraged to make suggestions. And those become then concrete things that CA can develop and go with if the board agrees.
Lynn?
Yeah, I think we need to at least talk to the different advisory boards about the fact that we do have some strategic plans. I know with the golf committee, they're very active, but they really concentrate on the individual problems within the golf course. So they use the meeting as a way to, they engage with staff, they engage with everybody. They're a very good committee, but I don't think they think in terms of larger strategic plans, and especially if we start dealing with Fairway, things like this, I think this is where we have to talk to, where we have to talk to all of the committees about, we need to just be able to prioritize some of the things that we do everywhere.
Alan?
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I'd say is, I absolutely agree about the strategic plan part. That I'm in total agreement about. I think we would want advice that's aligned with our strategic plan.
Right.
The numbers part is where I get off the boat, because I think if the middle school and high school group does an event and 30 people show up, that's 30 people more than we've done. So I don't, if 10 people show up, that's 10 people more than CA's done.
Yeah.
So it's whether they anticipated 50 and 100 and they only got 30, that's for them to feel like they did a good job or bad job about. It's still more than CA itself has done.
Any other discussion?
I just want to say that's our job as liaisons to the board, that we need to go to these committees, we need to talk about our strategic plan and ask them, and the staff person, that they tie this together in their forthcoming, the next report that comes up, because it doesn't make sense. They've already submitted their reports.
Yeah, I think actually that's a very good idea, that because we are liaisons to these different committees, and I think it coming from us, saying, look, we adopted this new strategic plan, and hopefully by next month we'll have the new strategic plan in a handout format as well as on the web. But it's a perfect opportunity to bring that to your advisory committee and let them know of the board's interest. And
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yeah, I think to follow up, though, I think we need to take, or somebody needs to take a look at the template, which was approved in 2016, and update it with what we're saying about the strategic plan, so that there's a section that they can, comment on. If you look at it, it doesn't include that. It's just a matter of updating it so it makes it easy for all the committees to make sure that's an area they'll cover.
It'd be nice to have the top line of each of the strategic plan areas. What are the 4 areas, and so they can
right
put goals into those.
So that it's a uniform thing. Every committee gets it, and there'll be no some committees did it, some didn't, etc.
All right, any more discussion? Anything? Everyone's going to take it back to their committee once we get the copies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Move on. Chair's remarks, written report, any questions?
I just wanted to comment that the Art Advisory Committee was pushed to September.
Shoot, it wasn't on the website.
I know, they literally have been circulating emails in the last week and a half, so.
Yeah, that is one of the drawbacks about putting the report in, a week or so before, because things can change. Anything else? Okay. If not, we'll move on to reports, and we have President's report. And welcome, Milton. Any questions?
Any questions?
Milton? Anything you want to say first, Milton?
No.
Any questions?
No, I just have one little thing I wanted to add. Since we are health and fitness, CA and known for health and fitness, I'm suggesting that maybe in the middle of each meeting or like an hour or two into it, everybody gets to stand up and move around, because I forget to do it, and then so I just recommend we do that. If you could add it into the agenda.
Okay.
You're here.
Yes.
Seventh inning
Could
stretch.
do our stretches.
It's like a 7th inning stretch.
Downward dogs. Hey.
No, it's not good.
We can bring in a Pilates instructor in 5 minutes.
Can we build a pool here so I can do water aerobics?
No.
Or a bar.
Okay.
Nancy.
Hearing no further questions. Inner Arbor Trust, any questions on Lynn's report? All right. On to tracking forms. Any questions on the tracking? Alan?
Yeah, line 8 of the board report tracking log,
Line 8.
sharing the list of board-related policies. I would prefer actually that goes to everybody, not just to 3 members.
Well, okay, if that's the decision of the board, because I thought the board said there was a small committee. The board created this committee that was, I think it was Dick, Shari, and who else was it? That they requested
And
that.
Andy, yeah,
And requested that information.
yeah.
I think that's fine, but they're going to do something with it. That doesn't mean the rest of us shouldn't have access to the same list.
Well, Shari and Dick is speaking. I thought they were supposed to be the initial, do some initial review and then report out to the entire board
I have
after
no
they.
problem with sharing it with everybody.
Okay, it goes to everyone
How
then.
do you feel? Sure.
Thank you.
I'm okay. I just want to remind everyone that the idea of using this subcommittee was to narrow down from voluminous material. So that we would narrow down and then get that back to the board. No decisions are being made of any kind, and if you have any questions about anything, I'm happy to send it.
I think that'll be a wonderful service. And doesn't mean I wouldn't want to see the volumity.
Well, if everybody wants to go through it,
That would be helpful.
there's a lot there.
Thanks.
Okay,
Well,
anything
well,
else?
Yeah.
Ginny?
Wouldn't it eventually be on the website available to everybody? So it's not like we all have to get hard copies or anything, right? Or,
No,
I mean, the outcome of what you guys are doing?
First of all,
Sure, sure.
we just want to, we want to go through it and see what's there.
Right.
But it's not a secret. Anybody, take a look at it and give us your feedback. And we will go through it and make our recommendation. But it's not secret. Feel free to send it to everybody and we'll listen to what you have to say if you've got any particular
Sure.
comments.
Sure.
Since I've somehow become the person responsible for this, I have been trying to come up with a list, and I've come up with a list, and the plan is sometime within the next few days, either tomorrow or beginning of next week. It will the policies will be provided in a Google folder, and so if you want, rather than providing the link to that folder to just Dick and Sherry and Andy, I can just provide the link to everything.
Sure.
I wasn't thinking hard copy. I was
Okay.
access.
Yeah, we want to try to cut down our.
There goes the trees.
If I may, before we finish, just to let everyone's probably heard, and I think it's still being finalized, that there's a possibility in mid-August that the Woodstock 50th will be coming to. As I said, I've heard about this, and I just don't know what the impact is. If as many people will come as possible, but that's out there, and that's a possibility.
I'm going away.
No, I didn't make the first one. I was only 14, so I have to go to this one.
Find another place for it.
All right, potential new topic?
3 weeks' notice.
All right.
So I
Talk,
I have
Janet,
something.
sorry, I'm sorry.
One of the things that has been under discussion is the frequency of the BOC meetings.
Yep.
I think that's remains open for discussion. I think that if we take advantage of this potential new topics, we could technically funnel additional agenda items, and it may be an alternative to those who are opposed to monthly BOC meetings. I think as long as we actually use this agenda item, we might be able to come up with the same result. So I think it's worth talking about. Because it's at the end of our agenda, I think we have a tendency to blow through things at the end. And so all I would say is that if, the board can see the path through that, possibility of talking through new agenda items, at this point, we have to commit to actually listening and not just trying to get out of here.
Ginny?
To follow up with what Janet's saying, Sherry and I were talking about this a little bit. For example, if there's, an agenda's been prepared for next month, and suddenly we see a county council bill or a state delegation bill, then we'd want to say, you know, this is important and why, and we need it on the next agenda or something. Is that what you're talking about?
Anything.
So use this opportunity, because.
Alan?
I guess I'm not, I agree with you, I'd like us to pay more attention to this. I'm not sure how this obviates the need for monthly BOC meetings, because like, for example, last meeting or 2 meetings ago, whatever it was, I suggested a new topic. I have no idea where that new topic is on any list.
Precisely, that's what I mean by glossing over them. So we actually have to commit to making decisions on when people bring up new topics.
Not just raising it, but making a decision about it.
I think so, because if, you know, I don't know if we do like short, medium, long-term kind of thing, but, you know, if it's something that has time sensitivity, you would want to get it on an immediate agenda. If it's something that could wait a month, then you'd want to just make sure that it's addressed in the next, you know, X amount of time, so.
Right.
Well, I think the other problem is, though, so I raised some issue, and frankly, one or two or nobody's interested in it, so why would what I wanted be on another agenda, you know? And especially if it meant that staff has to spend a lot of time doing research on it or working on it, and I'm the only one that's really interested in it. That's the dilemma here. You know, how do you balance that?
I think that's why you take a sort of.
Yeah, you've got to have a way of, like, are you really interested in this, or can it wait, or there's got to be some way of getting, otherwise we could wind up with staff spending a lot of time, and the rest of you are being polite or something, but you're really not interested. You don't even want to see it on an agenda. So how do we do that?
That's why I think we need the monthly BOC meeting, so we can have a more regular and timely discussion and ability to adjust the agendas.
But with that, it would still only be 4 people making that decision that might get it on the agenda with a 3-to-1 vote or something.
Well, I think 4 people deciding that's better than nobody deciding it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes other board members come to BOC meetings and talk about.
Yeah, so there's no, it would be a short meeting. It would, you know, basically we'd be looking at the agendas coming up, anything that's on the list, anything that people have raised, and we'll just be, you know, making a quick, you know, I don't see the meeting lasting more than 15 minutes or so to say, okay, we've locked this in, and we just do that. I mean,
An hour.
It's 3 people. If you got 3 people, how long?
Come on, Dick.
Okay.
Really?
Okay. It'll take hours and hours, but at least everybody will be represented, and we will have an up-to-date agenda, and things won't get lost along the way, as they have a tendency to do.
But you're asking staff
Is there
to come to 12 meetings, 8 more than they're coming to now. They're working all day. They're going to have to come back at 7 o'clock and sit through a BOC meeting. When you have a BOC, the most you're doing are handling 2 months of agendas. That's 2 groups, beginning and end. The groups in between are handling 2.5 months, because in November you only meet once, in December you only meet once. So you're only handling 2 months, and, you know, that's...
The only people have to be there.
Huh?
We don't have a whole lot of staff people here. I mean, Milton's on the BOC.
Susan, I don't know if Susan comes.
I mean, Milton is on the BOC. If the BOC is meeting to discuss what's going to go on the agenda,
Okay.
that's 4 people.
Janet sets up. I don't know if Valerie...
No, it's a little tiny meeting.
It's an hour.
It's an hour.
And,
Thank you.
and that's more meetings for the board.
Well,
You
I
don't
think
have to come
I think there are a
unless
lot of
you're
board members who are
that
willing
month.
to do it.
Only those who choose to come, or those 2 people that are on for the month, have to be there.
Okay, I'm just saying, I don't
If
think
it's
it will
worth doing, do it right.
Alan and then Janet and Lynn. And then let's try to wrap it up here.
We had monthly BOC meetings for most of the years that I've been on the board, and it seemed to be working. People came, if somebody couldn't come, they got a sub. I was never sure why or the efficacy of going to quarterly. And so I think we should stick with the monthly.
Janet and Lynn.
Oh, I was wondering if we would have the possibility of utilizing a video conferencing so that it could be a more efficient meeting and doesn't require setup or driving.
Right.
Use Zoom or something, sure.
Yeah.
So it would be, the actual meeting would be here?
No, the actual meeting would be on your device.
Okay.
And you call
Well,
in.
I mean, I think the first thing to look into is whether you actually need a meeting. You know, I mean, in terms of, well, we have residents speak out, and we have, you know, or whether it's because this is simply the board deciding what goes on the agenda, not making any decisions in terms of, you know, the stuff. That could be just a board internal process. I mean, and you could do a video type situation. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, would it be possible to use this last part of the meeting for people to raise issues that they would like to see on the board and get a show of hands as to whether or not people would like it to be considered for the next meeting? And let's just do a show of hands. If there's a show of hands and it seems like it's a priority item, then it can go on the next agenda under new business. If there's something where the staff has to prepare a lot of documentation, then you would need to allow enough time for that, but that would, you know, a month should be enough time to add to it. That way it eliminates another meeting.
Right.
We don't have a whole lot of discussion. If it's something that has arisen that a lot of people are concerned about, we would have some flexibility to get it on quickly.
Well, I mean, we do have it on the agenda. I mean, and my understanding from the ad hoc working group was that was one of the reasons we put it on the agenda was so that people could bring topics out.
I think what we're struggling with how do we decide whether something got, why not just do a show of hands?
Yeah.
Are people interested or not?
Right. We can do
But maybe requires additional conversation, because some things may require some discussion before someone wants it on the agenda or not.
But maybe we can set a time limit for that. I mean, I think that would be a good idea too, just to restrict the amount of time, and then at the end of that, people decide whether it's a priority for them or not.
Lynn?
I think that makes great sense. You know, we get overwhelmed with meetings. I know it depends on what role you're playing on the board, but you know, the idea of even one more meeting a month is sometimes terrifying. You know, having at the end of a meeting certainly would make sense. We'd all be talking about the topics anyway. I think that's a great idea.
Kind of like what we're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Alan Diddick, let's try.
Yeah, I'm fine with a time limit on the discussion. I guess I'm a little bit concerned about what the threshold would be to get something. I mean, like, I could see different thresholds, like a majority vote to get it on the next agenda, but I wouldn't want it to be a majority vote to get it on an agenda, because sometimes, I mean, it's sort of like, I think you were the one who said it, Nancy, I'll second it just so we can talk about it. I think that's the attitude that most of the time, if there's even a third of the board that says, hey, I think this is important to get on an agenda, it ought not to be, okay, that's not a majority, so we can't have it on our agenda ever. That.
Well, I mean, we have to set some rules.
That's what I'm saying.
We can't just put everything on the agenda.
We have to think about the criteria. That's what I'm saying.
Jenny, and then.
Last point, I liked what Janet and Sherry are saying as a compromise that deals with sort of really important crisis last-minute things, because it also allows for the other, where in terms of just thinking about our residents and staff planning so that we look better, we have more information. If you have to really have an agenda that's at least 2 months so that you can let your residents know, we're going to deal with this issue on this date. It's just a good way of keeping people informed, dealing with the open and transparency issue that we constantly want to improve on. So this allows for that compromise that would allow for something that is a crisis. So I think you guys have hit upon something, but also allows for the planning, good planning from a business point of view to continue. And it's really 2 months. It's not 3 months of agendas. It's 2, 2, and 2.5.
Just one quick, I just wanted to say,
And I'm not going to say more.
I agree with Alan, though, that I don't think it necessarily should require the majority of the board. I don't think it should be one person or even 2 or 3, but I think if maybe 4, I don't know how we make that criteria, but I think like 4 shows enough interest that it's worthy of discussion at the board level. And, you know, it may get voted down or, you know, it may not go anywhere, but at least I think, you know, if 4 people think that it should be on a future agenda, then that is enough to warrant at least the discussion of that topic.
Well, as Alan said, you have to think about the criteria. Because, I mean, because there really is a big difference between saying it has to go on the next agenda and it has to go on an agenda.
Totally agree.
You know, I mean, like, we're going to tell you right now, the September work session agenda is packed because, you know, we're going to do the neighborhood centers again, got the village financials, Milton's goals. Yeah, so already, like, you know, my thought is, okay, if it's some emergency, if it's something really, really important, okay, yeah, I can see it. But if it's something that just 4 people want to talk about, you know, I said, well, no, why don't you do it in October? Yeah, I mean, because
no, I think
you have
that's
more
fair,
time.
but
So
that's reasonable.
I think that's where you really have to put some criteria on.
But that could be part of the motion. Well, yeah, 4 people want it, but then you say, well, look at this, how about October? And we say, okay.
So isn't that I'm a little bit confused because I thought it was the board operating committee. So isn't the purpose of that to determine what the priorities are that the board's going to bring up at the next work session or meeting for a vote, or what the flow of that work is? Because some things need to be brought up more than one meeting. If you're going to actually pass something, sometimes you have to read it in 2 or 3 times.
Absolutely.
So while I understand that some of you want to not have more meetings, I guess from my perspective, management of the workflow is really the purpose of that operating. If that's what it is, then I'm not sure how just having a potential new topics category helps you manage that workflow in detail. And I think when you just, and I want a company, I mean, at the end of the day, I want a company that's nimble, and meeting only once every 3 months or so, give or take, doesn't make me nimble. I mean, that's where I'm conflicted. And I'm not sure what that answer is. And maybe we can't vote on that today. Maybe we need to think about
No,
it.
can't vote on it today.
Right, but I'm just saying, those, you see how I'm conflicted about this?
Right. I think what you really need is you need concrete proposals.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking different things. I mean, that's,
Right.
in order to carry the conversation on, you need concrete proposals.
So is it the second meeting or the meeting in September when we're talking about the foundation or the funding of grants?
Yep.
Okay.
That's coming too. That's on the September work session.
And
oh, that's in the work session.
That's in the work session.
Okay. So the agenda for the September work session's already been determined?
No, I mean, there's things
Gonna
that
be
we know are
very-
going to be on it.
Yeah, okay, so that will be
Sherry and Janet
determined
are
in the
going to-
September
In September,
BOC.
right.
September 4th.
Right. I mean, there are things
We're
that the
covering.
board has kind of asked for, like, you know, the grants. We say, okay, we can do it in September. Village financials is on our calendar already. Milton's objectives, we got to do those.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost the
because,
end
I
of the
mean,
year here, and
we're
poor guy's
doing
just hanging out there.
Sometime before April of next year.
Yeah, I know. So it's like, okay, yeah, these are things that are going to have to make the September agenda if we want
Right,
to do
because,
them.
I mean, go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah.
All right, can I make a suggestion? That before a BOC meeting occurs, whenever that is, that there is a timeline that is, that's printed up.
Oh, yeah,
So
we
that,
can do that.
okay, so,
Yeah.
so that as we come into that meeting, we already know what the
Yes.
timeline is
Yes.
for certain things, and that will help to slot things in.
Right.
And also to establish priorities, because I think that is the other question.
Well-
The thing about nimbleness is that there are some things that we'll want to discuss and some things that we'll have to discuss.
Right.
And that's where the establishing the priority really comes in. So it would be helpful if we have the timeline. There may be things on the timeline that can be moved if necessary, and there are some things that can't.
Right.
So it would be helpful for whoever is participating in the BOC to have that information when they come in.
Well, actually, what I'd like to do is share that information every month with the board.
That would be great.
That would be helpful.
We're
Yes.
working on that, but I think that would be my goal, is to actually share it every month with the board, so you guys all know what the timeline looks like, and also you understand all the stuff that's kind of like on the whole list of,
That would be fabulous.
right, so it's being worked on.
All right, that's a good idea.
Sounds good.
Okay, talking points, Valerie. And by the way, this is Valerie's last session
no.
with us.
Oh, why?
Got a
She's
promotion.
moving on up.
She's moving on.
Congratulations.
Oh, good for you.
What are you going to be doing?
What's your position?
Assisting Susan.
Oh, yay.
Wow.
Oh, that's nice.
Congratulations.
The board voted to approve the recommended budget parameters, annual charge rate, and cap for the draft FY 2021 budget. The board heard updates regarding Supreme Sports Club renovation, capital projects, open space, and community shop.
Sounds good.
Are we going to put in what the parameters are?
Well,
There were no
Yes,
changes.
also
Yeah.
from the back book, was it
Yeah.
$3 million for operating, $15 million for
Capital.
68 cents for the charge, for the rate, and 3.5 for the cap?
3.5.
That'll be the total.
And then Dan is gonna have to take the notes now.
All right. Actually, I'm impressed. We're only about 15 minutes over. So.
Yay.
But thank you all for coming. And by the way, enjoy August.